It being 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, this meeting of the Brockton Conservation Commission, the special meeting, is being called to order. This meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with Governor Healy's open meeting provisions, updated in March of 2023, which extended certain COVID-19 provisions until March 31st, 2025. Real-time public participation and comment can be addressed to the Conservation Commission utilizing Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. If you wish to comment during the public input portion of the hearing, please use the raise your hand function to be addressed at the appropriate time. For those of you joining by phone only, please press *9 to raise your hand. A copy of this recording will be on the city's webpage. Please note that this is a professional meeting. Should disrespectful or inappropriate statements be made during the meeting, the host reserves the right to mute the speaker. All votes taken during this meeting will be done by roll call to ensure count accuracy. Commissioners, please state your first and last name for the record in order that we might establish quorum.
Curtis.
Lily Green.
Teresa Mapp.
Justin Talbot.
And Joyce Forrest. So a quorum has been established. Okay. The first item on the agenda is a notice of intent for 50 Christie's Drive. Kyle, is everything okay? You look frozen. Kyle, frozen? Oh.
Yeah, I'm back now.
Christie's.
Are we doing the meeting minutes tomorrow night?
Yes, they're on the agenda for tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. Because tomorrow's the regular meeting. This is a special meeting. Yeah. So it's a notice of intent for 50 Christie's Drive. Is Mr. Faria is here?
Yes, I promoted Mr. Faria to a panelist.
Okay.
All right.
Good evening, Mr. Faria. This is a Mr. Faria meeting tonight.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Commission members. Thank you for the consideration of throwing me all in on one meeting. That was nice of you folks to take an extra night out of your normal life, so I appreciate that. The first one I have for you folks is a notice of intent for a addition to an existing hotel at 50 Christie's Drive. I'm gonna.
Mr. Faria, I'm just going to interject for 1 second. Could someone verify whether or not there's a DEP file number that's available and whether or not abutters have been notified and permits have been applied for?
Yes, thank you. We have received proof of abutter notification, and Mass DEP has issued a file number for this project with no technical comments.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Faria.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. No, that's not what I want. Just bear with me, please. For some reason, I'm going to lose it. No, I'm trying to share my plans, Madam Chair, but as I said, while I wrestle my way through that, we've got a proposed 40-room addition to the existing hotel at 50 Christie's Drive. 50 Christie's Drive was approved back 30 years ago by the Conservation Commission, by the Planning Board. And what we're looking to do is to add on to that existing facility. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Good. All right. So we are looking to add on to this existing facility with a 40-room hotel, and just trying to flip. There we go. So there's a 40-room hotel, Madam Chair, and some additional parking spaces. So,
Hey, Scott, just to interject, I'm sharing my screen now. So you'll need to tell me what you want me to do. I think we've just kind of happened to be lining up so far. So just let me know if you want me to change page.
Nope, that's perfect, Kyle. That's yeah, that's exactly it. So really it's from our point of view, it's kind of a simple project. We have a resource area behind us that you folks granted an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation Back a few years ago, we received an extension a couple of months ago on that resource area delineation. You folks had commented and Kyle had commented at the time that we just needed to refresh the flags. We did that. Everything was fine with that. So this project keeps everything outside of your 25-foot buffer zone. It's to line everything up with the existing hotel. We really don't have the option of pushing the hotel closer to Christie's Drive. We pretty much have to keep it in line with the existing hotel. So in doing that, we're close to the 25-foot buffer zone, but we're keeping our work outside the 25. When the original hotel was designed, it was designed with the thinking that an additional hotel and use for this vacant lot currently would be used in the future, so they over-designed the drainage system. So all we're doing is adding a few catch basins to our new parking lot, and that'll get drained over to the existing drainage area. So we don't really have any new drainage areas to propose. We do have some additional landscaping that we've proposed on sheet number 7, I believe, Kyle. Yeah, there we go. So we've got a little bit of landscaping proposed around our parking lot just to further green up the site, but that's essentially the extent of what we're doing. So I think we obviously have to go through site plan approval. We're kind of expecting that you're going to look to send it out for peer review. So I will leave it to you folks to discuss.
Thank you. Are there any contour lines on these maps at all?
Yes. Yep, there we go there, and even, yeah, there you go. There's a lot of contour lines there, Madam Chair.
Okay, I just saw, it looked like it was tucked up against the 50 to 25 area. There was a snow storage area, and I was just curious to see what the contours would be like if snow was stored 168,
Yeah, it does.
160.
Yeah, it slopes, it does slope down pretty well towards towards Lovett's Brook there, Madam Chair, towards the wetland, it does. I mean, there's probably about 40 or 50 feet of grassed area there before it would get to the actual brook itself. But that area at the kind of the butt end of the parking lot, that is what we're proposing for snow storage.
I think that was was it the first map that showed the extension that showed that snow area? It wasn't this
Yeah, I
one.
believe you're right. I think it's sheet number, yeah, right there.
Yes,
Yep.
storage area right there, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we've kept it out of the 50-foot buffer zone at least.
But it does slant down towards the river though.
It definitely does.
Is there any other place on the site that snow could potentially be stored that would be away from the resource area completely outside of 100?
I suppose that, on a lot of these jobs, we've got these big parking lots that aren't typically, they're not full. So usually what happens, when you go to your bigger plazas, they just make a giant pile of snow kind of in the middle of the parking lot just to make it easier for all the plow drivers to get to. And, we could certainly do that in this case and, lose, for the time being, for the time of the duration of the storm, lose 2 or 3 parking spaces. So we could certainly do that. We definitely don't want to have it up against Christie's Drive and have any
Right.
line of sight issues, but we could certainly do it in the middle parking areas. We could certainly do that, Madam Chair. We'd be okay. As I said, I'm assuming we're gonna send this out for review. We're gonna have changes to make. We can catch that on the next round of changes if you'd like, Madam Chair.
That would be nice, thank you. Kyle?
Yeah,
Before-
sure. Scott did a pretty good job of doing an overview of this project. My recommendation is that we do send this out for review. This is not exempt from stormwater review. So once we get the third party consultant thing worked out, which we're close on, we can send this out, have them just confirm that the existing stormwater infrastructure will handle all the runoff as Scott's suggested. In addition to that, though, I do have a couple questions, Scott.
Sure.
So the base, the foundation level of the addition is 169.8.
Yep.
I'm gonna go to a different. Okay, so we've got the existing contours in the light gray on this map here. So it looks like just behind the addition here, it's about 165. So
Correct.
are you gonna have to bring in fill to build the foundation level up, or how's that gonna work here?
There would just, in the back of the building, there would just be exposed foundation.
Okay.
Just like you have with your house, you have 3 feet of exposed foundation. There would be exposed foundation at the rear there, just so we don't have to bring the fill up there.
Okay, great. And then the 25-foot buffer zone is this line here, but the limit of work kind of goes out beyond, like farther, closer to the resource area from, away from the hotel here into the 25-foot. Is there any way that we can move that to the 25-foot, or is that just you need that space to be able to get machinery and things around the back of the hotel as you're building it? Is that something we could kind of cinch up or not?
I think we need a little bit of extra room directly behind the hotel, Kyle, so that the line we're holding there is the 25-foot riparian zone as opposed to the 25-foot buffer. But where it takes that little bend in the line, I think we could follow the 25-foot buffer as we get, right about there. We could follow the 25-foot buffer as it gets beyond the building.
So you would bring it forward at that point where the
Yeah.
corner of the building is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just so we've got to have room to get behind the building, obviously, just for excavation purposes. It won't be for the duration of the project, but we certainly would. But I think we could certainly do that. We could move it forward once we get beyond the building.
Okay. And then I know we kind of already talked about the snow storage, but if we continue to have the snow storage in the area, you said you kept it out of the 50-foot buffer zone. Would there be any plans to have some sort of delineation of that 50-foot buffer zone line? So, you could see where that snow shouldn't be pushed farther towards the river? Does that make
It
sense?
wasn't, but we could certainly. I mean, it's kind of an open plan. We could certainly, as part of our landscaping plan, we could either propose a row of shrubs right at the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here, depending on
Yeah.
what we decide after the review and what the commission thinks, but I think some sort of visual indicator might be a good idea if we keep that snow storage area as is.
Yep, and I think some additional plantings would obviously act as a buffer and also be of a benefit to the resource area. So we'll certainly look at putting some additional plantings there to act as that buffer.
Great, thank you. And that's all for me, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Okay, commissioners. Questions?
I don't have any.
How many floors are being planned?
It is 4 floors. Pretty much
Floors.
matches the existing hotel.
And I noticed little corners or squares with the letters LSA. What are those?
Landscaped areas.
Oh, makes sense. Thank you.
Too many
And what-
letters to put the whole word in there, so we try to abbreviate.
What is that trans pad that's right up on the 25?
That's an existing transformer.
A transformer.
Yeah. All of these, basically anything other than a residential home needs to have a transformer just to
Sure.
take the electricity from the pole and get it usable. So, and unfortunately, obviously it's existing, so it's kind of a moot point as far as that goes. But we don't really have all that much say in where those transformers go. We could show it there, and when it comes time for the utility company to do their connection, they might say, yeah, we don't want it there. We've got to put it wherever they want. So we kind of show it there as an informational thing, but it's always up to the utility company's discretion as to where they put it. But that is an existing one that won't move, and that'll feed both the existing hotel and the proposed hotel.
And Kyle, you said that the referral system is almost ready, the peer review system?
Yeah, I mean, I checked on there's one contract that's still being routed through the city. I checked on it today, and the last remaining signature is the mayor's signature. So we're just waiting on Mayor Sullivan to sign that contract, and then hopefully we'll be ready to move forward with everything.
Okay, thank you.
If I could just ask on this one and probably on a few of the other ones I'll have, once that happens, if it happened tomorrow, do we have to come to a meeting next month to agree to send it out, or does it go out right away?
No, so what we've been doing, Scott, is we've been voting to send it out for review ahead of time.
Okay,
That way, when it's done, we can just begin that process.
okay, perfect. That'll at least save us 4 weeks anyways.
So no more questions, commissioners,
None.
any comments or anything? Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak to this addition? Anyone there present?
I don't see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Then I entertain a motion then to continue till next month with till with a peer review referral.
Make a motion to continue 50 Christie's Drive to the March meeting, and with the referral and being it to set out to third party review once that process is done.
Maybe the February meeting.
Hmm.
Oh wait, February. Sorry, this
Thought
is
we had a
January.
February meeting, yeah.
I got confused. Sorry. Yes, to the February meeting, the next month's meeting.
February 19th.
Yeah, okay, so the motion is made to continue to next month with a referral for peer review, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Second on the motion, please.
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
Talbot, aye.
And Forrest, aye. A motion passes. One
Thank you,
down.
folks.
Welcome. The second item on the agenda is after the fact notice of intent for 196 Manley Street.
Yeah, so, Madam Chair, again, Scott Farrier, this is the site that, we met out, I think back in the fall, or maybe it was the summer, I forget. But we had a site visit out there, with a few of the commission members, just to kind of review it. So a long history, kind of a 5-year-old job and project that we've asked for a certificate of compliance a couple of times. And there's a few differences from the approved plans to what was built. So at our meeting and at our public hearings, we've discussed exactly how to rectify those differences, and it was agreed that we would file an after the fact notice of intent, basically explaining the changes that we wanted to make from the original approval, even though they're already in the ground. And once we had that, then we could proceed with a certificate of compliance. So the after the fact notice of intent that we have you is to allow for the construction of the sewer line that runs alongside the building in the grassed area, and also to eliminate the Cape Cod berm that was on the right side of the parking lot that we discussed out at the site visit. So those are really the two major items that differ from the approval to what was constructed. So those are, I think, the path that we're looking to go, although I'm sure Kyle would be able to clarify if I mess that up.
I think since it is a new notice of intent, though, we do, again, have to make sure that abutters are notified. There's a
Correct.
DEP file number, permit applications.
Yeah, so we did receive a proof of a butter notification, and Mass DP has issued a file number for this with no technical comments.
Okay, thank you. Kyle, did you want to put up?
Yeah, if Scott, if you're finished.
Scott, do you
Yeah.
feel like you completed?
No, go ahead, Kyle, take it away.
Yeah, so as Scott alluded to, there have been several applications for a certificate of compliance for the original work that was done under the previous and still active order of conditions. Agent Shave, the previous conservation agent, noted some additional things that she recommended the commission review before issuing an order of or a certificate of compliance for that previous order of conditions, including she noticed that there were some deviations on from the stormwater plan or the stormwater design that was approved under the original plan of record and what was installed. So as part of this notice of intent filing, I'm recommending that the plan that Scott has submitted as part of this filing is kind of an as-built. It's what's there now. So I'm recommending that we take that as-built and we can refer that out to a peer reviewer just to confirm that what's in the ground now does meet state standards. And then if so, we can kind of move on down the line with the issuing of an order of conditions for this. And then as Scott implied, then we can go and get a certificate of compliance for this and the previous order of conditions. Additionally, as part of the enforcement order that we issued last year for this project property, we are also requiring restoration of this kind of buffer zone area. I guess we don't have the map up, but there was an area that was impacted when they installed the sewer line behind the building. And so that restoration plan is going to be a separate kind of filing for the commission. And that's going to be handled specifically under the enforcement order and not tied to this notice of intent. So this notice of intent is really just what's been built on site now. And we're going to kind of review all that and review the changes from the plan of record, and then we'll move on down the road.
This does include the berm removal as well?
Scott, would you talk a little bit more about that? I guess I wasn't aware that we were doing a berm removal.
Yeah, we're not removing it. It was never placed in. As you enter off of Manley Street, that right-hand parking lot there, closest to the resource area, the original approved design had a Cape Cod berm. The Cape Cod berm was not installed.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
so that's another one of the differences from the approval to the construction.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Commissioners, do you feel as though you would like to see the plan, or do you have any questions at all?
Can we see the plan, please?
Yeah, I've got it ready, Scott. I can do
Thank
that.
you, Kyle. Yep. Yeah, so as you're looking at Kyle's plan there, below the building is where the sewer line was installed.
Yep.
And that falls within the 25-foot buffer. Let's just say that side of the building is at the 25-foot buffer zone. So any work from the building to the resource area on that side would have fallen within the 25-foot buffer zone. So that sewer line was installed. It comes out of the building and then goes to the rear of the building and out to the side street. And then the other deviation is right there where that drainage area is close to Manley Street. There was supposed to be Cape Cod berm at the edge of the parking, and there was none installed.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any questions?
Madam
I
Chair,
don't have a
ask
question. It's more just oh, go ahead, Justin.
I'm sorry, Sharifa, go right ahead.
Oh, no, I was just asking, I was trying to take notes. What was mentioned about the restoration plans? What did we say we're going to do, a separate filing for that?
Not a separate notice of intent filing, but we are requiring that they submit a separate restoration plan to the commission for review before implementation. We have not received that yet, but that is another requirement that was
Okay.
included in the enforcement order we issued last year.
Okay, I'm just taking notes, but that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public for this?
I don't see anyone from the public with their hand raised. Did Commissioner Talbot have anything to add?
Yeah, Kyle, I apologize. So just real quick, if we send this off to peer review, right? We get approval, the sewer line's never gonna change, and none of it's gonna change, right? So we send it off to peer review, it's approved, the sewer line's all the same, we can give them a certificate of compliance other than them fixing and doing some of the restoration, correct?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the way we should go. It's not gonna change, right? The sewer line's in the ground.
Well, so theoretically, the commission does have a no-touch policy within the 25-foot buffer zone. In the original order of conditions for this parking lot extension, I think is kind of what the expansion is what this was originally. It was very explicitly prohibited because the sewer line was originally proposed in that notice of intent filing. The commission decided that they did not want to allow that sewer line to be installed. So through the notice of intent application process, the plans were revised to remove that sewer line to appease the commission's decision on having no impact into that area. The sewer line ended up being installed anyway. So at this point, you're right. It is already in place. The commission could theoretically order it to be removed. The damage is already done. It's in place now. I don't know that makes a ton of sense, but it did, go against the wishes of the commission initially. So ultimately, that's up to the commission to how you all want to handle this. But my thought is, as you had suggested, all this hardware is already in the ground. Let's just make sure that it's in the best shape that it is. It meets all the standards, and then we can kind of after the fact approve it, and then just kind of move on down the line. The problem with issuing a certificate of compliance with a plan that the commission approved, and then what's on the ground is not that plan, you can't really issue the certificate of compliance saying you complied with that order if it's a different things on the as-built, right? So we're trying to kind of navigate that here. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Okay.
How long ago did the original notice of intent was filed? And
Yeah, the order
I
of
just-
conditions was issued in December of 2019, so
2019.
just over 5 years ago.
mhm, okay.
That was the one that said no sewer.
Correct.
Yeah, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth because they were told not to and they did it anyway. And now we have to just deal with the fallout.
Well, I mean, this is at the commission's discretion here. So we've kind of already talked through a lot of this, and the game plan that we had as a commission have come up with is this is the way we're going to navigate resolving this situation. As Scott's mentioned before, not this week or at this meeting, but the sewer line didn't have they didn't really have another option of where to put this. It is in place. The commission theoretically could require it to be removed because it was a violation of that initial order. But at this point, we've already issued an enforcement order requiring them to do this as the remediation. So I don't know that it would make a lot of sense to backtrack on that now because we've already kind of had that discussion in the past.
Yeah, there's no sense in disturbing that area twice. But there is a restoration plan in place because it's all underground, right? So,
Well, so when they installed the sewer line, they cut back a lot of this woody vegetation that was in right next to that waterway back there. So that's what the restoration.
oh, now it's coming back to me. I went out on that job site. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Now it's
Yeah.
coming back to me. Mhm.
And we haven't received that restoration plan, but that is required under the enforcement order, so we can pursue that under the enforcement order separately from this notice of intent filing.
I'm curious to see what the peer reviewer will have to say about the entire thing, so. So we entertain a motion then for a referral to peer review. For this notice of intent. And continuation till the next meeting.
I'll make the motion for 196 Manley Street to be put out to peer review and continue to the next meeting, which is February 19th.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green, aye.
Matt, aye.
Talbot, aye.
And Morris, aye. The motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one on the agenda is, oh, now we have Debbie. Now we're on to Debbie. We have a few Debbies in
Yes,
that subdivision, right? Off of Sequincy.
yes, off of Quincy and Debbie Road.
Mhm.
Uh, So Madam Chair, the first one, we have the subdivision on, as you said, off of Quincy Street and Debbie Road is under construction. The road has been paved at this point. All the infrastructure is in, all the utilities are in, drainage is in. Big detention basin at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's really kind of amazing to go out there and see what a difference the site looks like now from 6 months ago when we were talking about the proposed project. But so now that roadway construction's done, Mr. Macy's ready to start home construction. So this is, as we discussed at the notice of intent hearings, we would be filing individually for each of the lots in your buffer zone. So this is the very first lot in on Debbie Road on the right-hand side. The limit of work on this lot in all of these lots is the limit of work that was proposed and approved as part of the subdivision and notice of intent filing at the time. So working on those already approved parameters, we have a plan to you to place a home with a roof drainage infiltration system, as we discussed, driveway and associated grading to go along with it for a single family home.
Okay, so for each of the next four, I assume butter notifications and DEP numbers have been filed? Or should we do that with each one individually?
We should probably do it for each one individually.
Okay.
But
So,
for
3 Debbie Road?
483, butter notifications were sent out, and DEP did issue a file number with no technical comments.
Okay. Are there any other permits that we have to be concerned about?
Not as far as the Conservation Commission is concerned.
Thank you. And this is the map?
This is, so the green line obviously is your previously approved wetlands line. The orange line is the previously approved limit of work. In most cases, at the 25-foot buffer zone. We have our proposed dwelling as close to Debbie Road as we could get. There's a 30-foot zoning minimum, so we're at roughly 32 feet. And then the proposed dwelling with a 2-car attached garage.
Oh, there is a garage.
Yes. Yep.
And the garage is where the driveway is?
Yep. So the garage is kind of bumped out a little bit from the house.
Okay.
Right in this area here, and then the main part of the house to the side and a little bit behind the garage.
Is that entire house on a slab?
It'll be a full basement.
Oh, it is.
Yes.
So the slab is,
The slab is for the garage slab. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So the top of foundation is at elevation 190. The slab for the finished floor, basically for the garage, is 188.5, and it just slopes down the driveway out to Debbie Road and into the existing drainage system.
basement. And that 190, that's the elevation, correct?
That is the elevation, correct?
So then it's 186, so it's 4 feet. Oh, so will you have to level that out? Oh,
No, the backyard, there'll be a little bit of, again, similar to the hotel, there'll just be some, exposed foundation in the back there. So
Okay.
we don't really have all that much room to do any filling, so.
Yeah. And the infiltration systems are right up against
Yeah, we've got,
the work, pretty much.
yeah, we've got two infiltration systems for either side of the house. One thing we spoke about that I believe Kyle discusses in his agent's report, and we discussed it at the notice of intent hearings, that we would dig observation holes in each of the locations just to ensure that those infiltration systems are going to be placed above the groundwater, just so that they'll work properly. So we would fully expect that to be part of your order of conditions. And then the one other thing that we have, I guess, to maybe just to jump ahead of Kyle a little bit, we have these conservation markers. They're a little bit hard to see, but if you had a plan in front of you, you can see them a little closer. These little circles here at each of these angle points, where we've always had some kind of conservation markers that we've proposed on most of these jobs. So we've been working with Kyle on coming up with something that's usable and would kind of serve its purpose that you folks are looking to in the future. In the past, we've had markers that we've set, but we've set them pretty much flush with the ground. And obviously, after a couple of years of leaf litter and grass overgrown it, those markers get lost under the ground. So we've talked back and forth at various times about doing something different. And we sent something to Kyle that we were hoping would be acceptable to the commission. It's something that we've done that both West Bridgewater and East Bridgewater require it at their approved limit of work lines. And it's a 2-inch diameter piece of PVC piping that gets driven into the ground, and then it has a cap on top of the pipe that says Brockton Conservation Commission limit of work. So that cap on top of the pipe and the pipe itself being PVC are pretty permanent, and they'll remain there forever, and they're a couple feet out of the ground, so you'll notice it, and basically won't have any excuse when you go on the other side of the line in the future.
How high do they extend above the surface?
Couple of feet, 2 feet, I believe.
And then is there any particular reason why you chose those spots? For
Really just at every angle point. Just at the angle points, we hate to put them, I mean, we don't want to put them every 20 or 25 feet and have it look like a PVC pipe farm. So, but on the other hand, we have to have them at the angle points just so people know they can't go beyond those points, Madam Chair.
So you said that the marking will be on the top of the PVC pipe, just
Yeah. Yep, just as a
Look
cap
around.
that'll sit over the pipe.
And how long does the PVC last? It's a hollow pipe, right?
Yeah, it'll last forever. At least long enough so you and I won't have to worry about it, Madam Chair. I'm sure there's a lifespan, but I don't know what it is, but it's pretty long.
Seems to be a big gap between the 186 mark.
Right over
and the
here.
next. Yeah,
It's about, it's probably about 50 feet. Just from what we've done, every town's kind of different. Right now, we're doing these in Easton. We're putting them 50 feet apart. That seems to work. I think it's really up to everybody's discretion. And I know this is the first one. It's kind of hard to get a picture of, what does it look like at 50 feet or what does it look like at 25 feet? We've done them before. Like I said, we've done them before in Easton. We've put them every 25 feet, and you go out there and it just looks like a line of utility poles. In that case, it didn't look it kind of looks foolish. in this case where it's jogged, maybe it won't. So it's kind of one of those things where this is the first time we're using the PVC pipes in Brockton. Uh, you know, I would, I would hope that you folks would would know that myself and Charlie Macy, the developer, would, is gonna work with you guys. Maybe we can have a little discretion. We'll do what we think. We can go out there with Kyle before we ask for certificate of compliances. And if Kyle says he wants them every 2 feet, we'll put them in every 2 feet.
And in the agent's report, it said no herbicides or pesticides are to be used within the jurisdictional areas which encompass a majority of the yard, and it's
Agreed.
in perpetuity. How does that get to be conveyed to the owner and the next owner and the next owner
Yeah,
after
so
that?
yeah, the order of conditions, well, a couple things is, as a good real estate agent, which the realtor on this job is a Brockton guy that's been around forever, so he would convey that as part of his due diligence. But in addition to that, the order of conditions that you folks issues, it gets tied to the deed on the property. So that goes with the deed forever. So that'll continue on. If he sells it to you, then you turn around and sell it to the next person, the next person. That order of conditions gets carried on, and would be one of your standard conditions. So it's listed there. It'll be listed in the closing, and it's listed in the deed.
Thank you.
Kyle?
Yeah, thank you. Peggy, on that, with regard to the herbicide use, that no herbicide use is pretty like standard language that we include in basically all of our orders of conditions. In this case, I just wanted to make sure that we are all aware that basically the entire yard is within jurisdiction. We can reword any part of these orders of conditions as the commission sees fit. So, for example, we could say no herbicide use within the 50-foot buffer zone, or the bat. Yeah, it's just hard to convey what that 50-foot buffer zone is to the owner when
Right.
they're not going to have the site plan in front of them when they're when they're like necessarily reviewing the order of conditions. So it's just hard to convey where it's appropriate to have that. Putting a blanket no herbicide use is something we can include in the order of conditions. That doesn't mean that they're never going to be able to, go out there and spray dandelions. Like unless I'm standing over there watching, we may never know. So when you're drafting an order of conditions, the commission should be aware of what is it realistic to include this language. You want to be flexible, but also we need to be protecting the interest of the act. So that it's a fine line for the commission to kind of walk here. So that is a challenge. And then I just have a comment about the markers. So the order of conditions for the subdivision development required that we have this discussion with the developer, and we just never got around to it back then. So whenever we decide tonight, 3 Debbie Road, I think we should apply for the entire subdivision, just so it's uniform. Whatever we decide upon tonight. Scott, I can share that graphic if we're ready to go there. Otherwise, there are other options that we could entertain as well. We don't necessarily have to dig into that now. I know that Commissioner Talbot has his hand raised, but when we get back into the conservation markers, I want to maybe talk about some other options as well before we move farther down that road. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. Anything at all about the site, Kyle, other than those
Oh,
comments?
no, I think in general, outside of the outside of the conservation markers, I have a series of recommended social conditions that we could entertain if we issue an order of conditions. For the most part, I am concerned about the proximity of the home to the 25-foot. That's not something new. We knew that was going to be an issue coming into this. That's why I think it's imperative that we have very visible conservation markers that delineate that 25-foot no touch area, because as the commission members that may have looked at tomorrow's agenda, we have an enforcement order for 29 Country Club Lane that we're going to be taking to court because In that instance, the home basically went up right to the wetland itself, the wetland line, and they had signage installed. They just ignored it and, basically are attempting to make a yard in the backyard where the wetland itself is. And that's the danger with a development this close to that wetland boundary. So, the developer is willing to work with us about getting some visible signage. I think having visible signage is important. Permanent signage is important. So whatever the commission decides is both visible and permanent, I think is what we need to determine tonight. And then
Those
finally, I
wet-
guess,
I'm
Oh.
sorry. Those wetland flags will be there for perpetuity as well, right? The wetland flags that are delineating the.
no, those don't
Yeah.
stay refreshed by any means. No. So like for
Okay.
the duration of the project, yes, but once
Okay.
once they close out with notice of intent, with this order of conditions for the development of the home and the subdivision order of conditions is done, there's no keeping those flags, refreshed.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I thought there was.
Yeah,
And then the other thing is,
they typically last a few years, really. That's about it. They get kind of brittle and start to break after a while.
yeah. And then the other thing, I didn't realize that this was going to have a basement. So with that in mind, that's another consideration the commission should take into account before we issue the order of conditions, and we can circle back to that before we move farther, with the order potentially later tonight. Thanks.
Commissioners, any questions?
Commissioner Talbot has his hand raised.
Madam Chair, I have a few questions, and Kyle, if I'm going on the wrong way, but Scott, you mentioned PVC markers. Just being what I do and done for a living, what size PVC do you use?
2-inch PVC.
So you're gonna use a 2-inch PVC. Is it plumbing or electrical? White or gray?
White.
So
Yeah.
plumbing PVC,
Yes, plumbing.
schedule 80?
Yes.
Okay, I mean, my only thought with this is just because I've installed thousands and thousands of feet of it, when it gets really cold, it gets brittle, it can break. It's not gonna bend like if it's on the side of a house, because it's not gonna get that hot.
Right.
I know we've all talked about this. I didn't know if a piece of stone's not gonna break or get cold or snap. So it's 2-inch and it's 2 feet out of the ground.
Correct.
And then you nut and bolt the sign to that.
What we do in both West and East Bridgewater is just a cap that goes over it. And the
Okay.
cap is engraved, Brockton Conservation Limit of Work,
Okay.
something to that effect.
Understood.
Is the cap also PVC?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you for answering my question.
sure. Thank you.
Kyle, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just another comment. I just want to piggyback on what Justin said there. In my previous work in Indiana, I dealt with, this same type of PVC, the white stuff, and it does become brittle to the point where if you hit it with a mower or even like a strong weed whacker, it can chip and crack. So that would be my concern too, because this is going to be basically the limit of the lawn. So if we want to just kind of delve into the conservation marker, I think that might be just the thing to do here. Other options, we for the Heritage Court subdivision development that the commission is kind of actively working through now in the last few months. They have installed granite or concrete like signposts that they then put a sign on that they affix to it. I've reviewed another, that 29 Country Club Lane site that we issued the enforcement order. The language that was included in that order of conditions required a cedar post fence or comparable alternative shall be installed between at that point it was a different language because it was right up against the boundary, but. So Scott, so is Charlie on? He's not on the call tonight, is he?
I don't believe so.
So it wouldn't have to be a solid fence all the way along the perimeter. We could do segments of fence, and have signage there, kind of as you've kind of insinuated here with at the currently as proposed, you have the markers kind of at the junctions, at the points where the line changes.
Yep.
A fence could also kind of serve that same function where it's not a constant fence line, but like a fence segment here, another
Sure.
segment here. These are just options for the commission to consider. Ultimately, it's going to be the commission's call. I think that it's important to work with the applicant on this. Obviously, this is not going to be a cheap thing, but also we want to make sure this is a permanent fixture.
Mm.
And the problem with the PVC I see is it does get brittle. It's going to break. I feel like if you have language in the order of conditions, and again, these that we're going to be issuing now are for the home. We can have language in there that it's up to the homeowner to maintain these going forward, and I feel like having language that says you need to maintain the cedar post fence is probably a little easier for them to get you know, if there's a beam that needs to be replaced, you can replace the beam. If you need to custom order a PVC, cap that says Brockton Conservation Commission, it's just a little bit more onerous on the homeowner, I think, down the line too. So these are just things to consider as the commission moves forward with this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ferry, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So along the limit of work right now, is that a wooded line? Is that you expect that to be wooded?
Correct. That's the current tree line, correct.
The current tree line, okay.
Yep.
So would you expect that to be a wooded area because 2 feet in shrub might not be really visible? I don't know.
The tree line's always, it's more of the canopy of the tree line. So the actual tree is 8 feet away. That's the overhanging branches, and it's hard to, but they would be visible. It would be right up to the limit of lawn that Charlie would plant. He's gonna loam and seed right up to that, because again, the siltation protection is right there currently. So he's gonna loam and seed right up to it, and you're gonna start cutting your grass right up to it. So
And then beyond that, no grass cutting.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, I think Kyle's right. I think if we, I don't think we're in danger of leaving it kind of vague and it biting us down the road. We're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. I think if we wrote in a permanent marker needs to be placed at the limit of work, and, we'll continue to work with the commission and your agent, and figure out what comes about either, on this job and other jobs as you keep enforcing this, this regulation. And ultimately we'll install whatever makes you folks happy. I don't want to hold up tonight's meeting because we're
Sure.
well, we could do PVC, we could do granite, we could do pressure treated, we could do fences. We'll do whatever you guys want when you decide what needs to be done. It's going to be 6 months before we're
Sure.
done with the house and loom and seed it and need to do something. So we've got plenty of time for you folks to kick it around and let us know what the final verdict is, I guess is what I'm saying, Madam Chair.
That sounds fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scott, I do have a question about the basements.
Yes.
Will these have sub pumps?
Yeah, just as a good construction practice. We've got the top of foundation set there. We've dug holes out there on the site. We're confident that we don't have any groundwater issues and that we're enough above the groundwater with that elevation. And again, we've got to dig them when we do the infiltration. We'll dig another hole as we're getting closer to construction at the foundation just to make sure. But just as a matter of good construction, they would have at least French drains around them.
And then where would where would the pump be pumping the water out? Where's the water going? Like, is that going to be on the plan as far as like what corner, like where in the basement is this going to be pumped up and out to the outside?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think we would just have a perimeter drain along the foundation, but really we're going to be a few feet above the groundwater. So I don't think we'll have an actual sump pump in the basement like you would typically have in an older home.
Okay, so like so there would be no pump at all, just the French drain around the base.
Exactly. Yep, yep.
So this, forgive me for being ignorant. I just don't know how this works. So I am familiar with what a French drain is and how that would be
Yep.
installed around the perimeter of the foundation for the basement. Um, that's not tied into anything.
No, it'll just kind of stop, give the water a place to kind of collect and leach into the ground and stop it from getting up, under, really at that point, you're trying to stop it from getting under the foundation, under the floor. So that'll just stop it from getting under the floor. But, nowadays we have such a better idea of digging test holes and looking at the soil modeling. So we know exactly the height of the water table and the worst possible case of the water table. And then we go a few feet above that. So, I mean, with new construction, we wouldn't have any groundwater issues at all on these homes.
Okay. So if the commission is comfortable with that, we could include some sort of special condition. Because I didn't have any, I didn't know that there was going to be a basement here when I wrote the agent report. We could include some like a special condition with some language about like we're not approving a sub pump, and if a sub pump is going to be installed, that they need to come back and get like an amended order or something. It's up to the commission here.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Sharifa, any questions? Dustin?
If there was a pump, can they just pump it into the roof infiltration system? I mean, I'm sure that's big enough to handle the water level, right?
Right.
That's a question for the engineer. I don't know. Would that be sufficient, Scott?
Yeah, because I mean, at that point, you would kind of just be circulating the groundwater essentially, taking it out of the basement, putting in the infiltration system and just recharging the groundwater, which is what we're looking to do anyways.
Yeah. We could certainly include language like that as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be we certainly don't want to have it running down the driveway or tying into the municipal system ultimately. So that would be the logical place to tie it into.
Okay. Yeah.
And at that point, it's clean water. It doesn't need to be treated, obviously. So there's no harm in that.
and are those infiltration systems actually lined with plastic or anything? Are they actually those roof infiltration systems? Are they?
Yeah, they're plastic chambers. They have stone around them, and then the typical method is to put a liner across the top of them just so the loom and
Yep.
everything doesn't filter through and kind of plug it up. So yeah.
Okay. Okay. And is there a maintenance plan for those as well?
It's part of part of the homeowners, the operation and maintenance plan that goes with the roadway and goes with the order of conditions, but there really isn't much to maintain besides cleaning your gutters, just to try to keep as much of the leaf litter and pine needles and things out of it. Besides that, there really isn't all that much to do, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Kyle, your hand?
Yeah, just I know that we don't want to talk about these conservation markers the entire night, but also, Scott, this is your meeting, so maybe tonight's the night to knock this out and just get a decision, because
Yep.
I don't know at what point we're going to be able to have another discussion as a commission and really devote time to this during a meeting. So we don't have to necessarily decide this now. If you want to move on to the next, there are 3 more of these on Debbie Road that we can talk about.
Yep.
But ultimately, I think it might be good to kind of come to a decision tonight on what those are. Maybe we can circle back to that in,
How about at the end of the Debbie Road discussion,
Yeah.
the three more, that might be, I think that might work. Is that all right with you, Scott?
Yes, certainly. Thank you.
Okay. Peggy, any questions or anything? No. Is there anyone from the public here that wants to speak to this building?
let me check. I did not see anyone from the public with their hand raised, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So as far as proposed special conditions, there are the 4 that are outlined in the agent report. We spoke tonight about including language about if a sub pump is installed, that it should be tied into the rooftop infiltration units and not outlet into just the grass to be, overflow into the wetland. And then finally, I didn't include this, but it may be worthwhile, since there's going to be a basement here, that we include language about a dewatering plan. So general language that we use is, should dewatering be required, the contractor shall submit a dewatering plan to the Conservation Commission or its agent for review and approval prior to its implementation. So it's another special condition that I recommend that we include, since there's going to be a basement excavation.
So that's during construction.
Yeah. And then I guess to finalize my recommendation, this site, outside of the proximity to that buffer zone, I think we are able to move forward with an order of conditions if the commission's comfortable with the special conditions outlined that we've spoken about previously.
So close to the 25. Ah.
Just circling back to that conservation marker, that's why that's an important piece of
I know,
this.
I know, I know.
I saw some concrete markers on a line that looked like they would last a very long time. And on top of the square would be a circle with the Brockton Conservation Commission, and then you could say whether it was protected or something like that.
Okay, we'll go back to that after we finish the Debbie Road discussions, okay?
Okay.
Okay, commissioners, any questions at all? Does anyone? Peggy? I'm not Peggy, I'm sorry, Lily? I don't see you on screen.
Oh, fine.
I don't-
No, I have no questions right now.
Okay. So then there would be a motion entertained then to close the hearing? Is that right? For 83 Debbie Road?
Yes, if we are intending on issuing an order of
Yes.
conditions.
You feel as though the order of conditions could be issued as with these special conditions? Commissioners, it's up to you.
I'll make a motion to issue an order for
Yeah,
a notice of intent with the special
We have to
conditions.
Close the hearing first.
Oh, I make a motion to close the gosh,
83 Debbie Road extension.
thank you, 83 Debbie Road extension.
I second the motion to
So
close
the
the
motion's
83
been
road.
made and seconded to close the hearing for 83 Debbie Road extension. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
And Boris, aye. That motion is sustained.
Thank you.
Okay, and now a motion to issue an order of conditions.
I make a motion to issue order of conditions on 83 Debbie Road extension with regards to sump pump. There will be no sump pump or drain to the roof infiltration system. It also needs conservation markers and a dewatering plan.
And then I think there were a couple of other special conditions, right, on the agent report?
Yes.
Okay, but I'm not sure if I misunderstood. So the concept is if there were some pumps and they would drain into the infiltration units, is that right? So that way they wouldn't
Correct.
be going to the street or the wetlands.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. But right now, we don't know whether there's a sump pump or not in the plan. So if there is a sump pump, it needs to drain to the roof infiltration system.
Kyle, is there anything that you wanted to add to that as far as the way that notice of intent would be, I mean, the order of conditions be worded?
No, I think that's fine. So there were, I think, 4 special conditions outlined in the agent report, and then we discussed at the meeting the language about the sub pump requirements, and then the dewatering plan, should that be necessary.
Okay, so we entertain a motion then? To issue order of conditions.
I thought I started it, but all right, we'll make a motion
I'm sorry.
for order of conditions for 83 Debbie Road extension with the 6 special conditions that Kyle has talked about.
Make a motion, I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Nat, aye.
And Boris, aye. Mr. Ferry, one down.
And
Thank you.
do we need to meet next month on this or?
Closed.
I don't think so. I think this is granting the permit, right?
Correct.
I mean, we're
All right.
discussing the next 3 also that are in the Debbie Road area. So the next one is at 91 Debbie Road extension. Is that where we are?
Yes, ma'am. It's the
Okay.
plan I have before you. Essentially the same deal, the existing wetlands line that was approved, existing limit of work. In this case, again, we discussed this in the subdivision. There's a few piles on site that are basically just loam piles from previous earthwork that had been done on the site, historical earthwork 30, 50, 80 years ago. And those piles need to be removed just to protect the yards. There's trees growing on them. So in this case, we do have work outside of the 25-foot buffer zone that was shown, like I said, that we discussed. So this is the approved limit of work area, the proposed limit of work area highlighted in orange. Essentially the same house as we had on the lot that we just spoke about, roof infiltration system. Really the same situation. This lot's the house will be about 6 feet above the street right in front of it. The garage is about 4 feet above the street in front of the garage. All of the other conditions pretty much remain the same, Madam Chair.
Okay. I just have one question about that that loop that goes into the 25, goes beyond the 25 rather. Once that mound has been excavated, at that point, would you move the limit of work? And because I mean, eventually you're going to be putting markers at the 25 foot. So you want to make sure that it's at that original 25 foot, not at this limit of work, right?
We could certainly do that, Madam Chair.
Second question that I had when I was looking at this one, can you explain a concrete wash area with straw bales, please?
Just when they're, I guess, another area like a dewatering area that we spoke about previously, just when they're pouring the foundation before the cement trucks get back out on the road, they usually want to hose down the trough that dumps the concrete, just so the concrete's not dripping all over the neighborhood streets. So every single construction site, they just get out the garden hose and hose off the trough, and the concrete kind of goes everywhere. So in this instance, we're just making sure, again, because the site is almost entirely within your buffer zone, we're just making sure we give them a specific place to wash the concrete truck.
Is there any way that might be rotated over to the other side of the lot, so that way it's not so close to the 25?
We could put it over there and it would be outside of the 100, Madam Chair.
I think that might make me more comfortable.
Yep, I agree. We would be fine with that.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. I had no idea what that was.
Thank you.
What else did I have a question about?
Madam Chair, I might
Please.
be able to jog your
Right.
memory. You and I spoke about potentially requesting a restoration plan to be submitted for this area that's going to be currently it's within the limit of work where that material is going to be removed. Ultimately, as we've discussed before, we want to put the conservation markers at the 25-foot buffer zone. But just to have, some sort of plantings back in that area that's within the 25 foot to kind of designate that this is not grass. This is something separate from the lawn. And again, because of the house, the corner of that is going to go right up next to that 25-foot buffer zone. I think having some sort of, in addition to the signage that we haven't decided upon yet, having some sort of visual distinction between lawn area and restoration area might be a good just visual indicator and to separate those two things.
Yeah, for this particular lot, that seems
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah, so it'd really be this area right in here, this little
Yeah.
sliver.
Yep.
So I think, yeah, that's a good suggestion. And back to your point, Madam Chair, we would have the siltation control out here, remove that hump, and then slide the restoration, the siltation protection back along the 25. And then that would give us a
Mhm.
clear area where we could do a buffer zone enhancement plan is what we would call it, as opposed to a wetlands replication plan, but a buffer zone
Right.
enhancement plan we could do in that area.
Yeah, that would be great.
That sounds perfect. Good. Let's see what else.
On the, just because I have ADD and we're talking about everything, and on the, on those construction markers, as we're talking, I'm just trying to go back in my memory bank as to what we do in other locations. In Easton, we do 4x4 pressure treated posts. I know it was discussed about the concrete bounds, and the concrete bounds are expensive and difficult to deal with. They're heavy. They're just hard to install. A 4x4 concrete post by no means is it easy to install, but it's certainly doable. And again, what they do in Easton is similar to what was discussed about the bound. There's a marker that would be installed on the 4x4 post. The marker is attached right to the face of the post. And obviously a pressure treated post is pretty permanent. We stick it, a couple feet into the ground, couple feet out of the ground. That might be a good happy medium between the cheesy PVC post and the expensive concrete bound, I guess. And that, like I said, that's done in Easton. I could share that detail with you tomorrow if you wanted to see it, Kyle, but that's what it is. And then we would just have to come up with a placard that you folks would be happy with, that we could mount right to the face of the post.
I think it would be fine if you can if you can have some examples for Kyle that we would be able to maybe make a decision on at the next meeting,
Okay.
if that's possible. Or would you want that decision to be made tonight, Kyle?
I think it would be better. I think if we could have specific language in the orders of conditions that we issue tonight, but I don't think it's the end of the world to push this off until next month. But we need to make a decision ultimately, and that
Yeah,
we've
of
talked
course.
about this many times.
Of course. And this particular driveway was okay as far as the size of the driveway, correct?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Okay, and the same dewatering would carry over to this site as well, the same dewatering requirements and.
Well, so we're not gonna, at this point, I think we shouldn't be issuing an order of conditions for this site because we would want to have the restoration or the buffer zone. I'm gonna look at Scott's, the buffer zone enhancement plan. We don't have that in hand, so we would want to approve that along with
Point.
this as part of the order of conditions. So at this point, Yes, we have talked about removing that concrete wash area to somewhere outside of that buffer, the 100-foot buffer zone. But Scott can revise the plan, when he for next month, when he also includes the buffer zone enhancement plan for consideration. But beyond that, and those concerns, yeah, generally the same kind of things we talked about for the previous order of conditions would be the same types of special conditions that I would recommend to include in this order as well.
That sounds like a good plan.
Lily, you have your hand up?
Well, Peggy had her hand up longer, so she can go
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry. Go ahead, Peggy. I didn't notice my peripheral vision.
That's okay.
Funky.
I wanted to ask, is this going to have a basement also?
Yeah, all the homes will have basements.
And does this one have a sump pump plan?
Again, I guess I think on all of these, we'll have the same stipulation. If we do need one, it'll be tied into the roof infiltration. Again, with we don't think we'll need them, but I guess that's a good fail safe just in case. And to be honest, some homeowners just want one just to be sure, so they don't have an issue. So it certainly could be if you decide to buy this house that you want one put in, so at least we're covered. If there is one to be installed, it'll be tied in to the roof system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lily.
Peggy asked my question about the basement. Thank you. I guess my other was knowing a bit more about the concrete wash area. So is this concrete wash area you mentioned like when trucks are leaving? So is this? I guess it's kind of for the basement, like concrete around like the basement kind of
Yeah,
thing.
for the foundation
And the-
walls, the basement floor, the garage floor. Yeah, anytime they're pouring, it's just that, that long trough that comes down that
Yep.
they spread the concrete with. You just, like I said, otherwise they drive out on the street and be spilling concrete all over the road. So
Yeah. So the going back to the other property we just did for, since that's also getting a basement stuff. So like any truck that's doing concrete from that one would go drive to this concrete wash area before it goes to the road.
each
Or
each lot would have their own.
so
I didn't
okay,
see one
but
on the
the
previous.
lot before, yeah, didn't need a concrete wash area despite
Um,
like the
I think it
Nope,
was
that's
actually across the road, Scott,
yeah.
83 on the other
Yep.
side of the.
Nope, that's a fair question. The other lot, we just didn't have room for it, so we do have it across the street. But typically, we prefer to have it on its own lot, but in the other case, that lot would be constructed before the lots across the street, so the previous one will be across the street, but I think the majority of them are contained within their own lot.
and then so we're gonna have it moved to the other side. But once like the construction of the lot's done, then is it just like a concrete slab or something, and then they'll like remove? I don't really know how
Yeah,
how does it get covered up afterwards when it's
I
not
mean, yeah,
needed?
the wash area, they'll just loom over it and seed the grass over it. It's nothing solid. It's really just more the aggregate, the stone that's in the concrete. So really, after a couple of weeks, it just kind of looks like a pile of stone. So it'll just be loomed over and seeded over.
Okay. Any other commissioner questions? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this particular application?
If you do want to speak to this, please raise your hand. There is a new attendee, Madam Chair, so I just want to throw that additional instruction out in case
Thank you.
Barbara Lindsay wants to speak to this project.
Right now, we're on 91 Debbie Road extension.
All right, I don't see any hands raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I entertain a motion then to continue to the next meeting, which will allow Mr. Faria a chance to do that renovation section, whatever that was, move the
Buffer
line
zone
back.
enhancement?
Yeah, enhancement, thank you. And to alter the plan to show exactly what's happening with the concrete wash area.
Thank you.
I entertain a
I'll make
motion.
No, go ahead.
I entertain a motion to continue 91 Debbie Road extension, with the expectation that we'll have a revised plan with the buffer zone enhancement and the movement of the concrete wash area be, I believe, like outside the 100-foot we had said.
Correct.
Second,
So the motion's been made and seconded to continue to the next meeting with suggested changes. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
But I,
And Boris, aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Ferry.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on quickly.
All right.
105 Debbie Road, right?
All right. Well, so 105, I guess really everything else still pertains. This lot, we have a little bit more room on this lot. The majority of the house, excuse me, utilities, just about everything's out of the buffer zone. We still have the approved wetlands line, the approved limit of work. Everything else we've discussed, the sump in the basement would still go in. We have a concrete wash area proposed here. I think everything else is pretty much been covered on the other lots, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, so in my agent report, I noted that and I don't have an exact value here, Scott, and you might be able to provide this for us in a moment, but when Beta did their review of the subdivision, they made certain assumptions about what was going to be feeding into the roadway from each of the lots. So when they did that, they assumed that each driveway would have a square footage of approximately 1,200 square feet. Anything over that value of 1,200 square feet needs to be managed somehow. Any runoff from that's over that 1,200 square foot is more runoff than Beta calculated when they were doing their stormwater calculations for the subdivision. So when I did my napkin math on the area of this driveway on this lot, it seems to be about 45% above that value of 1,200 square feet. As Scott said, this is very similar to the other ones. Same concerns we've already talked about. My only concern is that there's going to be more impervious area draining into the subdivision stormwater than was calculated on Beta's when they were doing their review. So that said, Scott, I just had a couple questions for you about the driveway. I spoke with Evan Sears at the planning department, and we did some digging with on the zoning board and the ZBA and the appeals and stuff. I don't think there are any setbacks or anything that's limiting you from moving the structure closer to the road. Is that correct?
Yeah, no, we should, I was gonna say that's the easiest thing to do, just the driveway's typically, 20 to 24 feet wide, so if we kept it at about 50 feet long, that gets us right to the 1,200, roughly to the 1,200 square feet that you were talking of that Beta would. So we can certainly push the house forward. The only reason we have this one set back a little bit is just because the road's on that curve, just so we could keep the neighboring houses all kind of in line with each other. But we're talking 7, 8, maybe 10 feet pushing it forward, Kyle. So we could certainly do that. We can certainly do it, push it forward and get under that 1,200 square foot limit that we're looking for the driveway.
And if you do that, you may not even need to file, because the next lot down is a lot that you did not submit a notice of intent for. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if you move the house, 5, 10, 7 feet, closer to the road, you might be entirely outside of the 100-foot there as well. So it might be worth just taking a look at that. And
do I get a refund?
Well, I don't know that's how it works, Scott. I wish.
No, you're right though. If I push it forward, I could at least withdraw the notice of intent, and then at least we wouldn't be encumbering the lot just for that little tiny corner of the house.
Yeah, if that's something that you guys are willing to do, I think that might be just the easiest way to move forward here.
Now, just curiosity, if that's the case, but the property is still going to have a 25-foot buffer zone, you would still require the notification, the markers, right, all the way around the entire subdivision.
The markers are required under the subdivision order of conditions.
Okay.
In addition to, it would be doubled up on any of these homes that have their own individual notice of intent in order.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, so we're gonna have those markers around the entire perimeter of the subdivision, basically,
Yep.
with or without an individual filing. So, yeah, I think that would be good. So I guess for the time being, we can just continue this to the next meeting, and then we'll work on a plan that would eliminate the need to come to you folks. And if we can do that, then we'll just request to withdraw that notice of intent application in the future.
okay. That sounds fine. Is there anyone here from the public at all? To speak to this, commissioners, any questions or comments? If
I don't
not,
see any hands raised, Madam
No.
Chair.
thank you. If not, then I entertain a motion to continue 105 Debbie Road extension to the next meeting.
I make a motion to continue 105 Debbie Road Extension to the next meeting, the February 19th.
Okay,
Seconded.
thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Okay,
Green eye.
Snap eye.
I think I heard Justin. Did I hear Justin?
That would I.
Voris, aye. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. Good.
All right, Madam Chair, the last one for Debbie Road for the night is at the end of the cul-de-sac. I guess everything else pertains, existing wetlands line, existing limit of work, siltation protection. This is the lot, with these two lots have the water and sewer that go down the lot to connect out to Charlotte Street that was previously approved.
Was that what you had to build a connection there? Was that the?
Yes,
wetland crossing?
exactly. Yeah, both for the fire and for the DPW wanted it for the looping of the water main, so.
How high is that? Is it like a berm or?
No, it's right at existing grade. So
It
they
is.
were, in fact, it's already installed, but the utility, a trench is dug, the water's typically 5 feet deep, the pipe is installed and they just cover over it and, a year from now, you won't even know they were there once it kind of revegetates itself.
Mhm.
So that's been installed. This proposal for lot 12, again, just about everything. This one we can't push forward to get out of the buffer zone as we discussed on the previous one, but just about everything else is out of the buffer zone. The utilities, the driveway, the main, probably a little more than 50% of the house falls out of the buffer zone. But we do need to hold a 30-foot offset to the house, so we don't have much of a chance to push it entirely out. But I think everything else, Madam Chair, the concrete wash area, everything else would follow the previous discussions.
Okay. Kyle?
Yeah, so I reviewed this. This is very similar to the first one that we looked at, 83 Debbie Road, in that, I think that the commission could vote to issue an order of conditions here. I've recommended 4 special conditions in my agent report. And then I would then follow up and say we should also include the 2 additional recommendations or special conditions that I recommended or that we discussed at the 83 Debbie Road, which would include if a sub pump is installed, that it be tied into the rooftop infiltration units. And then secondly, if dewatering is necessary, that a dewatering plan be submitted to the commission or the agent before they commence with the dewatering work.
Commissioners? Peggy?
my question, I believe, was answered by Kyle, and I believe Scott told us every one of these buildings will have a basement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Is there any public comment at all? Kyle, I'm sorry. Let me see if I can see participants. I can't hear you, Kyle.
Oh, no one from the public has their hand raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, good. Thank you. Then I entertain a motion to close the hearing on 121 Debbie Road Extension.
I make a motion to close 121 Debbie Road Extension.
Second the motion?
Motion's been made and seconded to close for 121 Debbie Road Extension. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye?
Map I.
And Voris, aye. The motion passes. Motion then to issue an order of conditions with the conditions outlined.
I make a motion to issue an order of conditions with the special orders as outlined by Kyle.
Second the motion?
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye?
Map I.
And Voris, aye. That motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the question to the commission is, do you want to continue to discuss permit markers at this point in time? Or
If we don't decide to do this tonight, I would recommend that at the beginning of the meeting next month, we just have like a commission matter right after the minutes, and we can kind of discuss. And we can then maybe have some photo. Scott, if you maybe in the meantime, you can go out and take some photos of different things that you've done in different places.
And we
That
will-
might help the commission have an idea of what we're actually looking at, and then we can make a decision maybe next month.
I think that would be a great way to resolve it. I think that the whole idea of having visuals is wonderful.
Yeah, I can do that and get it to you, within a few days, Kyle, so at least that way you can get it with everybody's packet so all you folks can look at it before the meeting, so at least you'll have an idea ahead of time.
That sounds
That's a
wonderful.
good idea.
Certainly start that when we do the minutes, and yep, that sounds fine.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Um,
so Debbie Road is done. Looks like you can do some building.
Commissioner Green has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I didn't really put a t-shirt into it. I will just say I'm not a huge fan of the idea of PVC piping just because of the chipping and the plastic and the microplastic kind of situation. I know sometimes when you cut PVC piping, if you're not careful, you get all the little yuckies. And if someone, if it does break and they have to put a new one in, then, but I will say I'm more of a fan of a more natural looking one, not made of plastic.
Understood.
That's reasonable. Okay. That's a good point, Lily. Thank you. Okay. Debbie Road. So the next one is a request for a certificate of compliance for 1854 Main Street.
Yes, so Madam Chair, 1854 Main Street is a site about the same thing. I think an order of conditions was issued back in September of 2018. And we've asked for a certificate of compliance once previously, and I think we're pretty well settled on everything except that the grass around the outside of the detention basin just hadn't been stabilized at that point. It wasn't growing in really thick. So at that point, the previous agent suggested that we wait until the grass comes in a little thicker. And to be honest with you, COVID hit and everything kind of just went astray, and the owner of the property never really revisited it until now. So now we've got the certificate of compliance back for you folks. He has been maintaining it. He's been mowing the grass. So I think that we'd just like to bring that to your vote to hopefully get a certificate of compliance finally.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yeah, sure. So as Scott said, this has been reviewed for a couple times before for a certificate of compliance. The previous Agent Shave, confirmed that all the stormwater infrastructure had been installed correctly, as you know, according to the plan and everything. So it really just was the stabilization around the top of these two retention basins in the back of the property. Unfortunately, you know, this time of year, it's very difficult to tell if something's stabilized and there's actual vegetative growth, since everything's died back anyway. The applicant has installed some sod near the back of the parking lot near two of the retention basins. Um, but there are other areas around the basins that are pretty sparsely vegetated. They've put some seed down, but at this time of year, obviously nothing's germinating. Um, so there's the whole issue about the stabilization, and that's something we can talk about. I've got some photos I can share with the commission in a moment. But even that aside, when I was out on the site, I noticed that the section of tile that connected the one of the, I guess would the infiltration basin that's closest to the river that it drains into, there's an overflow tile that conveys water from that basin to the river, that has been damaged. It's caved in. So I would recommend the commission require that to be repaired before issuing the certificate of compliance. So between those two things, I think that at this time, I don't think it's the right time for the commission to issue that certificate of compliance. I think that we should let my recommendation is to vote to deny this request, just so we don't have 30 things on the agenda, because our agendas are absolutely too bloated right now. And the applicant can reapply for a certificate in the springtime once they're able to stabilize and have that seed that they've spread germinate, and they're able to repair that broken tile. Would you like to see some photos?
I would, thank you.
So I'm looking. I'm standing basically at the extent of the parking lot, looking back towards the two retention basins. There's one over here that you can see pretty well, and I'm standing right next to the other one, which is kind of right here. The applicant has said that, you know, I know that he's under a time pressure and he wants to get this closed out. He's said that he's willing to put more sod down. I think if sod is put like this, all in these bare spots, I think that would also be sufficient. But this is kind of the state of things currently, and you can see that I've got closer photos of bare spots, but you can see, you know, obviously where the sod is. There's some growth here, but just around the perimeter. And again, in the summertime, this isn't grass, obviously, but it could be vegetated. It's just hard to see if it's going to be, you know, stabilized, and if the commission will deem this stabilized. I'm just going to cycle through some photos here. Uh, just another angle of the sod there, and then the more bare areas. This is a bare spot of dirt. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There is grass seed here in the photo, but again, it was put down in the way too late in the fall or into the winter. It won't germinate until the spring. They may have to reseed it in the spring. So there's no guarantee that this is going to necessarily come up even. So I think ultimately, if the commission's gonna recognize the requirement in the order of conditions is that this area be permanently stabilized, I think that the commission should hold off on issuing the certificate of compliance. I'll show a photo of the broken tile. It's hard to see here, but this hole is a hole that goes directly into the tile that conveys water between the retention basin and the outlet. This is the tile that has the hole in it. So the hole that I took a photo of is kind of like over here, going directly down into the tile. So this is part of the work that was permitted under the order of conditions, and it obviously didn't have that hole when it was initially installed, but since then it has developed that hole, and it should be repaired before the commission issues the certificate of compliance.
Kyle, just for informational purposes, exactly what do you mean by tile?
This is like I call it drainage tile because I'm from the Midwest, but This kind of piping is what's used to convey water from,
Yeah.
this portion to that
Okay.
portion over there. So that
Sure.
it's this plastic piping.
Okay,
It's what we call a pipe. For some
Yeah.
reason, he calls it a tile.
Yeah.
okay, because what, in my mind, a tile is something square that connects to other
Like a
tiles.
bathroom, yeah. I think like a bathroom tile.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I thought so when I used to saw the picture, photos before, but I thought, tile. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, commissioners, questions, comments?
I agree with Kyle. You can't really see that these areas are seeded or whether even if the sod is going to take, because the sod needs a lot of water. I mean, it looks good from this time right now, but it does need to be maintained in order for it to be established. It really needs a little more vegetation before we could probably close this out. And I was looking for a little square tile too.
Sorry. I'll try to change my verbiage going forward.
Okay, that's okay. We'll expand ourselves to become Midwestern.
It's a
Mhm.
wicked cool pipe, not a tile.
Wicked cool. Wicked big. Is there, we don't have to take any public comment or anything in this because.
We don't, but the applicant is on and he has raised his
Oh, okay,
hand.
fine. I didn't see that. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, Justin, of course.
Oh, Justin, you're muted.
Can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Much better.
This is just a question because I'm the newest on the commission, but can we issue a certificate of compliance with a stipulation? And then if in that stipulation, let's just say the owner wants to sell, it goes in to the new owner anyway, right? I'm just thinking, like you said earlier, we've got a million things going, and that's just a question. That's all. I apologize.
I mean, I think you could, but there's no enforcement, and that also puts the impetus on us to follow through on checking this. If you throw it back at them to have to refile once they've done the thing that you've asked, and it's not. There's only one agent, and if we had a whole team of people, we could set a timer and have somebody go out and check it out in 3 months and see if it stabilizes. And if not, there's the only alternative is to, you can speak to them about it. And if they say buzz off, you have to hit them with an enforcement order. So by holding the certificate of compliance out until they are fully in compliance, that's what that's what it's really for. So you don't have to go through that song and dance. It's just a lot more. The administrative burden is just not. We don't have the staff to do that.
I appreciate the clarification.
Yeah, I think the fact that it is stabilization, you want to see that it's actually doing what you wanted them to do in the first place. So it would seem reasonable.
All right, I'm gonna promote the applicant. Okay.
Thank you.
Nope.
Good evening, Mr. Sever.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to thank you guys for taking the time tonight to take care of important matters. I um, so I want to say we met with Kyle on the site. Um, I sh we discussed the site. He looked at everything, told us, and I said, "Hey, this is what we have here. Do you need anything else? Which everything should be fine." Left and said, "If you need me to get some massage, I can do that." They left, everything is fine. The reason why we did that is because again we're on a time crunch. The property is under contract to sell, and I I told him if there's anything that needs to be done, I'm gonna make sure I get this done because we need the certificate of compliance. This property was supposed to be sold already, and this came up, and I thought this was taken care of years ago, but it was never taken care of. And again, that's not on you, but that's on me for not following up on that. So I was willing to do whatever what was asked of me to do, so that when we come to this meeting, I wouldn't get any surprises. I am surprised that these things are being brought up right now. Because I had asked, hey, if there's anything that needs to be done, please let me know so that I can go ahead and get it done so we don't have any issues. And now this is coming up. And also, emailed pictures to Kyle showing that this area is vegetated in winter when everything is that frozen. I sent pictures, I sent videos to show that to him, and there was no comments back. There's not okay. Well, you need to go and get more soil. You need to do this. There was nothing back. I thought we were all set, and now we having this issue again. I wouldn't have an issue with this because I mean I get it, but we have this property is under contract to be closed, and I need to sell. The buyer needs to buy, and pushing this again was they were supposed to close already. They wanted to close already. I wanted to close already, and now we want to hold all this up because grass, because we have some areas that right now in winter everything is frozen. The area that shows that's no grass. When I sent after his visit, not a day later, not a week later, after his visit, I emailed him pictures. I emailed him some videos that shows in the summer that this area is covered with vegetations. So I don't think that's fair and we had conversations back and forth too. There was not one time that he mentioned any that there was anything that needed to be done. I understand you have to do your job, and I respect that. But I have a business to run. I have a sale to close, and I hope that the commission is not going to hold myself or potentially make me lose that sale, potentially make this company go to another town because we have some areas that don't have grass, that where grass is not growing. I ask that you please consider this. Because my sale is depend on this. My business depends on this. My livelihood depends on this. Thank you.
Mr. Silver, what about the broken pipe?
Again, this is new to me. This was never raised. If the commission wants to approve their condition and tell hey, you have to fix that, I have no problem fixing it. Again, if I had known this would have been done. This would have been done before this meeting. I did not know. This is my first time hearing of it. And I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem fixing it. Other condition is closed and pending. Hey, you have to with the condition that you get this taken care of. I will get it taken care of next week. Again, I did not know this was an issue until now.
Kyle, your hand? Thank you.
Yeah. So I guess, Stan, I owe you an apology. When you and I spoke on the site, I was looking generally from the parking lot. After you and Mark, I believe, was the other gentleman's name, left, that's when I walked around the perimeter and I noted that break in the tile. Later on that afternoon, I went back to my office and I drafted an email and I sent it to your representative, who's representing you here tonight, and said that there's an issue with that tile that needs to be fixed. And after I had a better idea and I had walked the perimeter, I noticed more bare spots. I raised that concern in that email. I didn't include you on that email, and that's probably my bad. So I apologize for that. But I did reach out to your representative and inform them about all these concerns. All these concerns were also highlighted in my agent report, which was issued on the 16th, over a week ago. So I did, and that's my standard operating procedure. I communicate generally with the representative of the applicant. So obviously we kind of miscommunicated here, but so that's kind of that. As far as those videos that you sent me, from what I could tell, it was very hard to see where we were actually looking. A lot of that vegetation that you were looking at, from what I could tell, were at the actual retention areas themselves, not the perimeter. And in the previous agent's report, uh, there was not any question about the retention basins being vegetated. It was the perimeter, and so what it looked like to me is like it was just very overgrown for the retention basins, but I couldn't quite see the perimeter areas. So again, that's kind of how it landed, and I apologize for that. But I feel that I did everything that I could have done outside of CCing you on that email, and that was a mistake on my part. So going forward, when communicating with this property, I'll make sure that I include you on communications along with your representative.
I I I I I get that. But I'm this is I don't think we're under normal circumstances here. Like I said, I I need this to close. We're not talking about um big issues here. We're talking about grass. And again, that's your interpretation of that. I see vegetations everywhere, including in the basin, in the pyramid. I see vegetation everywhere. But but still, we're not talking about a major issue here. We're talking about grass. We're talking, I mean, there's nothing on the, I mean, it's gonna grow stuff. I mean, there's things, I mean, I don't. And again, I spoke to, well, I don't know what email you sent to Scott or whatever, but I spoke to you myself on this. It was like, hey, I not told you, hey, do you need me to go get some more sod in this? Because okay, no, that should be fine. That's what you said to me. That should be fine. And I'm thinking of we all set. There's no issues, right? And I told you myself, hey, whatever needs to be done, I am willing to get it. If you see any issues that need to be raised, please let me know. I'll make sure I get it done before the meeting. I say that to you myself in person, right? I thought I did everything I needed to do so that we wouldn't be here.
Mr. Feria, is there anything that you could help with?
I think everything's been said, Madam Chair. I think, I mean, I think Staun's right. I think ultimately the grass is gonna grow. I'm not sure what, I think it's just bad timing being the end of January. I mean, everything's an easy fix. The grass grown's an easy fix, and fixing the pipe is an easy fix. Just a matter of the timing to do it, I guess, Madam Chair.
So 2018 was the original? That was the last time there was a request? September 2018?
I think the request was 2021, Madam Chair.
That was the last one?
Yeah, I believe so.
And if I may add one more thing too, again, I take the blame for not bringing this back in following up back in 2021, make sure this was done. Again, COVID hit. The business I had there, I lost that business during COVID, and had to get another business, and so a lot happened in my life, a lot happened in that property, since then. And now we're here. So I'm again, I'm not trying to put anybody in any uncomfortable situations. I I think as soon as I knew that there was an issue, I've done everything I could to make sure that we're here today and that I could get approved for this and move on.
Is this a used car dealership?
No, we do construction equipment rentals.
Construction equipment? Okay.
It used to be used car dealership, yes.
So is there heavy equipment that's in that area sometimes?
Yes. The lot is paved, so it's usually on the paved lot.
Okay. Kyle, your hand is up. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to for the record, note that I sent an email out on the 10th of January. Kind of this is I think must have been the day of our meeting, reviewing that after you had left. That's when I actually walked the perimeter of the basins and I outlined the concerns that I saw after doing that. And I can forward you this email. I know it's not any good now after the fact, but the intention of this was to allow you time to do that work. And I apologize that it wasn't communicated to you, but generally, I communicate with your representative. That's how this works. So, you know, my apologies, but I thought that I had done my due diligence on the 10th.
Kyle, I have a question for you. If he added more sod to the area, would that be enough to meet the expectation of the commission?
Well, that's up to the commission.
It doesn't repair the tile.
Yeah, I mean the tile's still broken.
Oh, that's right. Mm-hmm.
They're kind of two separate issues here, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that tile is required for underground transport of water, right?
Yeah, I'll pull up the site plan here in a moment. It conveys water from like overflow from the retention basin out to the waterway.
So if you got the pipe fixed by February and added more sod, would that meet the expectations?
It's up to
Yeah,
the commission.
I mean, but again, ultimately, this is the commission's decision. But yeah, I think if you stabilize the site, Peggy, you yourself raised concerns about the sod because it does take
Right.
care to make sure that it takes. But generally, I think that would be sufficient.
Lily, you have a question?
So I think Justin mentioned this. So if we have him repair tile and then say we do the sod and then do the COC with the stipulation that, Kyle goes out once, growing season happens to see how it is. And then, if it's sold to someone, we try and work with them to like if it more needs to be done. And if they're not compliant, since they're now the owner, that means we could, in theory, then hit them with the enforcement order. I know we wanted to avoid that, but I also understand there's the point of the business part and
So Mr. Server would be responsible, or whoever the agent is, would be responsible to let the new buyer know that they would have to maintain that area and assure that it was stabilized.
that, and also I guess have maybe open stipulation that Kyle will visit, during the growing time, or if someone, I guess, I don't know if Mr. Fair wants to as the past representative, since that was the
Well-
plan, but someone will put back and have documentation that it's stabilized or not, and then I guess I know it's a bit of extra work, but for something like this with the time crunch, maybe we could, I guess, add in that extra. We go talk to the new buyer, I guess, and if they comply with it, great, and if not, I guess we do the enforcement order.
Kyle? Your hand was up first.
Yeah, no, the concern that I have with that, Lily, I like the sentiment. I wish that we could do that all the time. The concern is having an area that's like not stabilized is not a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act. If we do this, and again, I want to just kind of divorce this discussion from this specific project, but if just generally the commission chooses to issue certificates of compliance before a site's stabilized, with the agreement that the applicant will stabilize the site in the future when it's springtime or when whatever. And they do it, great, wonderful. If they don't do it, and we say, hey, come back in the spring and say you need to do this, and they tell you that to get lost, well, you don't have any recourse anymore because like no judge is going to uphold an enforcement order saying there's a patch of bare grass over here. It's not stabilized. That itself is not a violation, unless we can demonstrate that there's erosion taking place. Having it permanently stabilized is a preventative measure so erosion does not take place. But just having it bare ground isn't a violation of the act. And so I wouldn't recommend that we issue an enforcement order. If you do allow that for if you do grant the certificate of compliance, and then they just tell you to get lost later, you're kind of stuck, and there's not much you can do about it. So I just wanted to throw that out there so you guys are kind of aware of how that would work.
So the issue here is the fact that it was a condition.
Yeah, and it still is. And then there's the tile as well, is broken. I've got the site plan here. Can I share that
I
with
would
you?
like to see that. Thank you.
Okay, so as I said before, the previous agent report had reviewed all the stormwater and everything had been installed according to the plan of record, which is what we're looking at now. The two retention basins are located here, one here, and then there's one over here. So all the stormwater from the dry or the parking area is conveyed into this first retention area. There's an overflow into the second retention area, and then there's an overflow from this second retention area down into this this weir that's a riprap weir, which is a tongue twister, but that is these dotted lines. That's that pipe that we were looking at before. That's where the pipe is broken. So this is part of the plan, and it was installed correctly, but in the meantime, after it was installed, it's degraded to the point where it's broken and it needs to be repaired before the commission issues that certificate of compliance. And again, if the commission decides to vote to issue the certificate and an applicant says, buzz off, like having a broken pipe is not a violation unless we can demonstrate that there's an impact to the wetland or to the resource area in question.
So that's all area that for infiltration before everything gets down to the South Great Plain River.
Yeah, and also it will just retain that water. And it
Right.
will infiltrate or evaporate or whatever before it
It's-
ultimately overtops and goes out into the river.
Yeah, it's an overflow that happens when we get above the 100-year storm event. Before that, everything's held in the basin and infiltrates, so it's under.
Right.
It isn't something that a typical rainfall goes through those pipes. It's an emergency overflow type of a situation.
Right. Now this does say, oops, that did say auto. What did that say? Auto.
I can share. I can put it back up. I thought we were done. I apologize.
Says warehouse auto repair building.
Yeah, that was the original project was to build an auto repair building. So at the time, that's still what Stawn was using it for.
And Mr. Sabra, that you said it's construction equipment rental now? Is it like
Yes.
big pieces of equipment or like?
Medium size, small to medium size.
Okay. They're stored in the warehouse?
This is mostly used to repair them. They usually they will be stored in the backyard, yeah, in the pave area.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing in the back area where the drainage money is now. There's nothing there.
Justin,
Thanks, Madam Chair. Do you have an actual closing date on when you're supposed to close?
Yeah, so we were supposed to close this month. So everything is on hold now pending the what happens at this meeting. What happened after this meeting could be the sale could be canceled. I don't I have no clue what's gonna happen. Everything is pending to what happened at this meeting.
Yeah, I appreciate the answer. And Kyle, the only reason I ask is because obviously if he sodded the whole area, right, and the commission agreed that it's now has vegetation and it will grow. And then I'm assuming that corrugated pipe is probably a 14 or 15-inch pipe. And that was is that the top of the pipe that we took a picture of that was broken? It's not,
I mean,
right.
presumably, yeah, it's just the top of it. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I mean,
If that pipe
We
needs
could
to be
fix it, I mean,
replaced, won't that area be all disturbed again?
Probably.
probably.
I mean, it would be a temporary fix. It would, again, where it's just that corrugated, we would just be able to sleeve over it just to continue to carry the water. So it wouldn't be a huge disturbance.
Kyle?
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in the agenda, but the last item on this agenda is pertaining to the time sensitivity of this specific request for certificate of compliance. We have a violation discussion for 1824 Main Street. That's the next property to the north, also owned by the applicant. That there's an issue with that, and just for context for the commission to be aware of, the pending sale that's been referenced is for both of these lots, and it's my understanding that it's going to be like either both lots are going to be sold or neither of them. So it's kind of a package deal. And I just want the commission to be aware that whether or not they decide to issue this certificate of compliance tonight, there is an issue with the next lot to the north that the commission needs to discuss. Now, this is again up to the commission if you want to take a break and talk about that violation and have that as part of the context for this discussion tonight about the certificate of compliance request. But there is an issue with lot to the north that does require action from the commission.
And they're both Mr. Sever's property.
That is correct.
I think it's really important to get a full picture of what's needed.
All right. Well, if you don't mind taking that item out of order, Madam Chair, I can begin that discussion.
Commissioners, what do you think? Okay, let's do that. Thank you. Do you want to take a 2-minute break or go straight on? No, let's keep going. Let's keep going with this for sure.
I'm just pulling up a map here real quick for you. So I've not issued any notice of violation or enforcement order to this property about this property yet, but we did discuss it when I was out there on site reviewing the request for the certificate of compliance. So we actually walked over to the next property when we were there. Excuse me. Let's see here. I'm going to turn off some different data layers so we can kind of see what we're looking at here. All right, I'm going to share my screen. This is a Massachusetts mass mapper aerial imagery that shows various different layers you can kind of have over one another. So the site we were just talking about for the request for certificate of compliance is this lot here, 1854 Main Street. So here's the building that we're looking at, the parking lot that was installed, the 2 retention basins. But as I was looking at this lot, when I was doing the review for this, I just noticed up here that this green textured area is where the state thinks there may be a wetland. These things aren't 100%. This hasn't been ground truthed, but this is noteworthy because the state thinks there's a wetland here, and there also happens to be some sort of parking area that's been installed here. So what I normally do when I see something like this is I'll look at the data layer that we're looking at, or the base layer, and in this case that was an aerial photo from 2023. So I went back to 2021, which is the one before that, And you can see that that area it's not disturbed in 2021. So at some point between 2021 and 2023, this kind of path roadway was installed, and I'm going to turn the wetland layer off so you can kind of see back here. But basically, this is an area of fill that's been added, and they just use it for storage of trucks or machinery. Okay. Again, we don't know that there's a wetland or not. That's something that we can determine later. But the problem and the most glaring problem is that all of this area that's in turquoise is the FEMA flood zone AE, or in our case, what the commission refers to as bordering land subject to flooding, which is a jurisdictional resource area. It's you're unable to add fill to a bordering land subject to flooding without including compensatory storage. So by adding fill into this area, that's a violation of the act. I wanted to have this discussion with Stan on the call tonight so we can kind of talk about this because he and I spoke about this briefly when we were on site. But I wanted to get some I haven't issued anything yet on this, but this is a violation that also is going to be an issue for either the current owner or the people that are intending to purchase this property. So this is not so cut and dry as if the commission chooses to issue the certificate of compliance that the sale is going to go through, because there's a violation in this next lot that's part of the sale that could also throw a wrench in things. So I just wanted to let the commission be aware of that. In general, my recommendation for this, I mean, the way to resolve this, as you can see down here at 1854, it's not unpermittable to have a parking area in bordering land subject to flooding. You can pave it, but you have to include that compensatory storage, which is what this area is back here with these infiltration basins. They would have to do something very similar to this site up here to make it like not a violation. So at this point, all this fill, there's probably about 3 feet of fill, 2.5, 3 feet over, as I kind of walked down this hill at the end of at the edge of this perimeter here. It's about 2 or 3 feet of fill that's been added back here. That all needs to be removed back to existing grade. And then at that point, we could do some soil tests to see if there is a wetland underneath that parking pad that's been installed. Now, in Stan's defense, he's been emailing me about this as well. He did hire a company to come out and do a wetland delineation for him. And they came out and they delineated the bank, and they said that there was no wetland back here. And that may be the case.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the commission never reviewed that, and that work was never approved. The commission never approved that delineation. So while that was a good first step, he thought he was in the clear, and he didn't know about building in the floodplain, and that's unfortunate. But ultimately, a violation has still occurred here. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about for the violation discussion. The commission needs to decide how we want to move forward with this, but this also is a complicating factor in the sale of the below property at 1854 Main Street. So all that said, it's ultimately up to the commission, but I think you should be aware of both of these issues as we move forward tonight.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of things to add, I guess.
Please, go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. So when we were made aware of it, of Kyle's investigation of possible violations out there, Stan did send me the delineation that he had done by another firm, I'll say in 2021 or whatever the date was. And granted, it was just done. It wasn't submitted to the Conservation Commission or gone anywhere. So we had Brad Holmes, who typically does my delineations. We had him go out to the site, and he certainly had the Mass GIS map with him. He did acknowledge that area that's mapped under Mass GIS, but it's not a protectable area because it's not connected to the resource area of the river. So it's basically an isolated wetland area that's not protectable. It essentially becomes a puddle. So he did go out there, and he agrees with with Staun's previous delineation, that there is in fact not a protectable wetland in that area. The second issue about the floodplain, I guess if you go back to Kyle's plan, it shows that whole shaded in area. We filed as part of the project next door, Staun's original project back in 2018. We filed with FEMA a letter of map amendment, a LOMA. What happened? FEMA has a flood elevation given to that river, either elevation 72 or 73 off the top of my head. I forget what the elevation is. So the line that was on the map that Kyle showed was basically a graphical determination of the flood zone, even though it was given a specific elevation. We went out and did a topographic survey of the area and determined exactly where that elevation 73 was, filed that with FEMA, and FEMA agreed with us and took that entire portion of the floodplain out of the flood zone. So I do have a letter from FEMA that does that. The Brockton flood manager would have had a letter back then in 2018 about it, but the maps never get updated. The maps will be updated in 20 years, and at that point, it would be caught up. But if we look back to that original plan that Kyle had of Staun's repair facility, there's a note in the corner that says, at least I hope it does, that says the flood zone is shown as a result of a letter of map amendment that was filed with FEMA. So that whole shaded in area that was shown on the Mass GIS, that is not a flood zone. And again, we have that documentation from FEMA. They just don't update the map. So at least from our point of view, we have two plausible and legitimate responses on both of those issues. We've had Staun now has paid for two botanists to go out there. It's not a protectable wetland. It's isolated, and FEMA ruled that that's not in the flood zone. So I know it's a lot of stuff to take in a short amount of time, and but those are the facts that we have on our side of things, Madam Chair.
So you're saying that floodplain that Kyle showed us is not really a floodplain, or is it flood zone, floodplain?
Yeah, it's not it's floodplain, flood zone. They're all kind of the same, almost like a tile and a pipe, but it's not yeah, so what happens, I mean, FEMA has these flood zones that in a lot of cases are just graphical representations of a historical flood. That would be in this case like a flood zone A. When the flood zone is called an AE, the E means there's an elevation. So
Right.
they say that the flood gets up to elevation 73.
Right.
So what we can do then is we can go out and do a survey and determine exactly where that contour 73 is, anywhere along that river, and that is where the actual flood is, not the graphical representation, but the actual surveyed 73 contour. Once we do that, we submit our plans to FEMA. They review it and look at the topographic survey that we did, and they issue a letter of map amendment, a LOMA. And like I said, it's a certificate that we have that would have been sent to somebody in the city back then 8 years ago. And at some point when the maps get updated, that would get updated. But if you ever go to the FEMA site, there's hundreds of letter of map amendments just in the city of Brockton. And you can look them up by the address. In this case, you'd say 1854 Main Street, and it will pop up and say, a LOMA was issued in October of 2018. But again, the maps never get, the maps just don't frequently get changed. So when they do get changed, it'll be caught up with it. I wouldn't expect it now that we're getting rid of FEMA, but at some point that's there. So that giant document is out there. There's a giant list of properties where surveyors typically have requested letter of map amendments to get that line more accurately shown than that graphical depiction, Madam Chair.
And we don't have a copy, Kyle, of that LOMA report for this?
Well, no. So because I've not issued a notice of violation or an enforcement order yet. So this is really the first time that we're having an official discussion pertaining to this property. So no, Scott's not sent any of this over to me. Um, maybe my recommendation at this point would be, Scott, if you could just forward all those things to me, I can look over it.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
Commission doesn't need
I
to,
don't
yeah.
think- I don't personally think any of this is something that's going to resolve itself within a week, though. Do you, I don't know why I feel as though some of this, we should have known some of this before, but
Well, I mean, this is good information that Scott's providing to us, and everything he said here is true in the way that it works. So the floodplain AE was based upon elevation. I've not seen a site map or an elevation map of that site. So there, it's conceivable, but that could be outside of the floodplain. In that case, it would be outside of jurisdiction. And if Brad's gone out there and this other firm went out there and they determined that there's not a bordering vegetated wetland out there that would be jurisdictional, then it would not be a violation. But these are things the commission needs to to look into before we decide, okay, well, there's no problem here. So, so I guess Scott, if you want to send those things over to me, I can review that, and then maybe
Sure.
we'll add this on the agenda for next month again, and we can have a discussion as as far as
Have more facts in front of everybody, agree.
yeah, that would be
Right,
great.
right.
And then at the same time, Mr. Savera, hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed, just an extension of just one, it's not even a month because this meeting is so late and the next meeting is mid-February. It's just a couple of weeks away. What's the date of the next meeting? Hopefully by then you'd be able to have that tile replaced, pipe replaced, whatever, put down some more sod and maybe the entire
Yeah, it's February 19th is the next one.
February 19th, yeah, it's not that far. It's not even 3 weeks, so if we were able to continue for fact finding for 1824, and then for you to be able to replace that pipe and to do the sod at the top of the perimeter, then perhaps that could resolve the issue and you'd be able to go forward with your sale, maybe? Is that something you might consider?
So, let's back up a little bit with 1854. So once that other of condition is removed or satisfied or whatever the term is, once that's done, does it not take some time before the whatever's attached to the title get removed? Does that take a week, 2 weeks, a month?
So the way that works, I can jump in here. After the meeting and after the commission makes that vote to issue the certificate of compliance, then it's up to me. I draft that. It's a document that I draft, and then once I get that drafted, if we're under a time crunch, I can work with you. You can pick that up from me physically, and then you have to go get it recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So that process can be expedited if necessary. So that can be done probably the same week of the meeting. So we have our meetings on Wednesday, so the 19th. That could probably be done on the 20th or the 21st at the latest.
Well, obviously, I'm at the mercy of the commission here. Um, what I would like to see happen, honestly, is that this other condition will get the certificate that we need. So and we go and get this thing fixed, get it taken care of, and if he wants to come by, he can come by. If he wants us to send him pictures once whatever you ask is done, we can do that. That way we know this is I know the buyer knows this is this is taken care of, and because I mean this is a big if that we taking on that I'm taking on, um, because again we're not talking about major issues here. We're talking about grass, right?
And a pipe, and a broken pipe.
And I am not saying I'm not gonna do it, and I'm not saying I'm not arguing that hey the grass grows. We have vegetation on it. There's no sign of erosion anywhere. It's been how long? There's no sign of erosion. There's a reason for that because there was vegetation. We are in winter now. So, and I'm not saying okay, I'm not gonna do it. All I'm saying is I'm gonna do it. You want me to go and spend $5,000 in sod and cover the whole area to get myself done? I'm willing to do it. You want me to fix that pipe? I'm willing to do it. All I ask is that please give us what we need today so that we know, hey, this is done. I get this thing done in a week and I can move on with myself and I can satisfy the commission. That's what I'm asking. And as far as 1824 is concerned, again, I it wasn't my intention to go and do anything there. I before anything happened, I hired and paid a company to come and this is not cheap to come and survey the property and find out what the wetlands were. And they told me there are wetlands all the way in the back. As long as you don't touch that, you're fine. Again, we someone came, they need someone to put the landscape equipment. Hey, can I put it there? They went and they didn't go in and put feet of fill there. That's not the elevation right now where it is right now is lower than the both lots. My lot that's paved and the other lot on the other side. It's much lower than that. So we did not go and do anything of that sort. So again and again, I once something was brought to my attention, I sent Kyle the file. Hey, this is what I did. There's no wetland here. I paid to get this done, so I wouldn't have any issues. An issue came up, okay. And you even say, hey, when you could get ahead of this, you could go and have them come and do this. And you know what? I went and paid and got it done again so that we can get this thing resolved. So again, I don't put myself here in jeopardy. I think I went above and beyond to do what was asked of me, and all I ask is return is that we grant us this other condition, and I'll take care of the grass, I'll take care of the tile, I'll get that done I'll get that done within a week. That's all I ask.
Commissioners, any comments? Oh, to Kyle.
Yeah, just kind of one last wrap up here. And it's not, I don't mean to be like, this is not a prejudiced comment about your project. I'm not trying to hold you up, but I just want to warn the commission of setting a bad precedent here because I know that you have a lot of stakes with this project. But this time constraint that we're under is not the commission's doing. The order of conditions was something that was issued years ago. The project was done years ago. The applicant came last time they came to get the certificate of compliance, and all they needed to do was stabilize the lot. That was 3 years ago, and they dropped the ball on that. And like, it sucks the position that we're in now, but ultimately, this has been one meeting, and oftentimes these things are iterative, where the commission says they review the filing. There's one or two things, minor things, just like this, that are wrong and that need to be addressed. And the applicant will go and do it. And then the next meeting, they get their certificate. And I just think that, setting a precedent like this is not a precedent that I'm interested in following up on, not just this one, but the next one and the next one and the next one that's inevitably going to be coming. So just be cautious, be aware of that, commission, as to there's one conservation agent for this entire city. So we don't have the staff to do this regularly. I know there's always an exception to be made, but you know, this time constraint is not the fault of the commission. So that's my last comment. Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing is that, not that I've been on the commission that long, but I have seen where there's been a changeover of property, and what was promised to have been done wasn't done correctly, leaving the person who was buying the property in a deep hole, it really in a lurch. So here it is now. It's not a huge fix. It's something that can be done in a relatively short period of time, and you're done. And then the torch is passed with the property. And I just, from that previous experience, it just makes me feel as though it much more comfortable if we know that the last agent said, please make sure that the site is stabilized. That was in 2021. And there's no evidence that it's definitely stabilized yet. I mean, yes, of course, you have the sod, you have some areas, but she spoke specifically about the perimeter. It personally, I would feel much better if the job was simply done. If it's not that big a fix, that it just be resolved. And in the meantime, Mr. Farah can provide the information that's needed for the other lot. But that's my own personal feeling.
I agree with what you say, Joyce. I don't want to make a rash decision since this is the first time I'm looking at and hearing about it. And it may just seem like a small problem, just grass or vegetation. But to the river itself, which is what we're been entrusted to do to protect, it is a big deal. And since it's been issued a couple of times, 3 years ago, then unfortunately the ball stops with Stawn right now, and it has to be done.
Tarifa, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think what was suggested earlier was to give it until the next month and then just having everything completed, hopefully by that point, so that we could go forward with the issuing the certificate. So
It's not
again, I agree too with Kyle, like you just don't want to set anything that will then ripple effect to another case down the road where someone could have watched this and said like, oh, well, you gave them to go ahead. So.
Lily?
I
Justin?
would emphasize, yeah, the president, and then since, like we said, we have the Wetland Protection Act, if we give that certificate of completion, we lose that kind of power that we have to, make sure we're protecting the wetland. And I know like other stakes in hand, but what we have to do is protect that wetland. And like you said, if we do allow it, then the next time we want to protect the wetland, someone's going to say, well, your standard wasn't as high then, so why is it higher now, I guess.
Justin, any comments?
Madam Chair, can we give an order of conditions right now based on all this for him to fix it and then potentially talk about a certificate of compliance in the third week of February?
We can continue and ask
Yeah.
that these things be addressed by that meeting. And if so, then Kyle has stated that he'd probably be able to actually get Mr. Severa to come by and pick up the documentation and hopefully just speed it through the process.
That might be a good way to go.
If if it were a full month, it would be one thing. The fact that it's just about 3 weeks away seems helpful to me.
Yeah,
Hopefully it doesn't, hopefully the sale itself can be postponed until that time. But then hopefully it would be resolved.
So can we make a motion to continue 1854 Main Street to the February meeting where those two conditions need to be met as established by Kyle? The pipe has to be repaired and more vegetation needs to be added.
In the form of sod, perhaps,
Right,
or, yeah, or stabilization of some sort, right?
correct.
Particularly around that perimeter of the basins.
I certainly do entertain that motion. Is there a second?
Did Peggy entertain it and someone seconded it, or?
It was
I
made.
made the motion.
Okay, I
Mhm.
didn't know if it was made or was being questioned if it could be made. I will second that motion.
So the motion has been made and seconded to continue 1854 Main Street to the next meeting with the understanding that the pipe and stabilization would be completed at that time. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Matt, I.
Talbot, aye.
And Boris, aye. The motion passes. Mr. Silvera, will we see you in 3 weeks?
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. That's 18, so that was 1854. Now we're 135, Elliot, is that right? Number 8?
Yes, Madam Chair. So 135 Elliott Street is we keep running into these old projects, is another old project that was approved by the commission back a few years ago. The project, they were getting ready to start the project. I'm going to share my screen if I may, Madam Chair.
Please do.
And hopefully I can. All right. So this is Elliott Street, 135 Elliott Street. It's the site of an existing warehouse, I guess you'd call it a janitorial supply warehouse. Been in business for a long time. We came before the commission with a project to build two 3-unit buildings in the front of the existing warehouse with an associated parking lot, grading, drainage, a large subsurface drainage area. The project involves some filling of the floodplain. This heavy black line is the floodplain associated with the brook next door to our project. And we went through the whole beta review process and received our order of conditions. We've been looking to get started on the project, and our biggest problem was there is an existing gas service right in this area here where I'm moving my cursor that feeds the existing warehouse facility. To be honest, we kind of assumed moving the gas service wasn't that big a deal, was just like moving an electric service or a water service, and that it was doable and would be okay. And Mr. Fenton, Mr. Chanel, the owner of the property, and Jim Morrissey, who's the construction manager, have been working on it for well over a year, and it basically comes down to moving a gas service is almost impossible to do. The utility company just does not do it. So with that being the case, we had to come up with a new floor plan. This red outlined area was the previously approved building footprint. We've now come up with a much smaller building footprint that would allow us to construct the building and leave the gas service where it is. We don't have to touch the gas service, and everybody's happy. So in order to do that, it changes the plan slightly. So we're here tonight requesting a modification to the order of conditions. So there's a few things that we've added to the plan since your order of conditions. Again, shrinking the house gets the house out of the buffer zone. This red line here is the 100-foot buffer zone. So it takes the portion of the house that was in the buffer zone, moves it entirely out of the buffer zone. In addition to that, when we're looking at revising the plans, we also realized that our drainage area was within the sewer easement that we're proposing for the sewer that serves the warehouse building. So we felt like we would want to move the drainage system to get out of the sewer easement, and also to further move the drainage structures away from that gas service that we can no longer move. So in doing that, we've reconfigured the drainage area and have added additional storm tech chambers, the plastic chambers that we use to install these drainage systems. Previously, we had 72 chambers proposed. We've now have 78. Just because they're rectangular chambers, you really can't pick your size. So when we decided to move it, we had no choice but to add a row to the end of the system. So, and again, that was necessitated by the easement, but also the proposed storm scepter and the drain manhole that we had. Previously, we had them right over the gas line. Again, thinking we we're going to move the gas line. Since we can't do that, we have to move the drainage structures. So that caused us to resize the drainage. It's actually bigger than it was previously. The other change that we made, we previously had a sidewalk between the two sidewalks between the two buildings. We've eliminated one of the sidewalks, so now there's one sidewalk. So the bottom line is, Madam Chair, we're looking for a modification in the plans that we have before you tonight are a reduction in scope of work. Again, the building footprint is now entirely out of buffer zone. The drainage area, the size of it has been increased by a few chambers, adding more drainage to the site. We've also added as part of our stormwater management filing with the city, we were asked to put in an emergency overflow on the catch basin. So we've added an emergency overflow on that catch basin. So it's our feeling that the scope of the filing really hasn't changed. And in fact, it's actually reduced the amount of work in your buffer zone, and would hope you could see to it to issue a modified or amended order of conditions, Madam Chair.
So this plan here are the proposed changes. Is that
Yes,
correct? And where is
correct.
that gas line?
The gas line is right here. It's under a whole bunch of stuff, but it's a dash line with a letter G to it. And
Okay,
it goes,
right?
it
Yeah.
goes right here, and
Yeah.
right in the front corner of the building is the existing gas meter.
So will you still keep that deck there?
Yeah, yep. So the deck will be over the gas line, which is okay as long as there's no excavation, obviously on the gas line. So the deck over the gas line will be okay. It's an open deck. They would be able to still maintain the line if needed. Everything else, as I said, the drainage area, we're installing this retaining wall as part of the project to hold our fill over on the upland side or on the buffer zone side of the property. We have a retaining wall. This filling that we've done in the floodplain, we have a compensatory storage area proposed out here in the back to make sure that our flood volumes are the same pre-construction and post-construction. So it's really the main reason we're here is we're shrinking the building down. And then with that, we've got these minor changes, which to be honest with you, we probably would have, we would have picked them up on the as-built and during the request for a certificate of compliance, just noted those as plan changes where they're not really, any additional work in the buffer zones, of the permitted work. So, it's essentially just because of that unit, shrinking down.
I'm just reading through agent report. Hang on.
Sure. Actually, while you're reading, Madam Chair, I'll kind of jump ahead on that thought. Kyle did have, I think, four comments on his recommendations. If I could just address those there. They're really relatively minor. His first one was add the limit of work, including the machinery access, which is this area right down here, to the erosion control plan C7. It was shown on the previous plan. The line just got erased and didn't show up on this plan. So it's basically just the way to do this compensation area. You have to get in there and dig out that area just to provide the added flood storage. So the only way to get to it is around the building and down the road this way to get to that storage area. So that's what we had shown on the previous plan, and it just didn't show up on this plan. So that was his number one. I'm sorry.
You can actually dig out close to the 25-foot for compensatory.
So we're staying out of the 25-foot. And you can see we've got these contours here, which would increase the flood storage at elevation 92, at elevation 93 and 94 and 95. So it's storage within the buffer zone, which it already is. This whole area is within the flood zone. So it's just digging it a little bit deeper just to provide additional storage.
Mhm.
And
then what else? He mentioned something about a bioretention area.
Yep, so his number two was include the approved elevations for the compensatory storage area. There was a chart on sheet C6 that just didn't show up on this plan that we'll add to our plans. The third issue was clarify the addition of a second landscape schedule. It says compensatory storage area landscape schedule. It's just a landscape schedule. As part of our site plan process with this smaller building, we were asked, I'm going to see if I have that plan, but we were asked to do some landscaping. So we did some landscaping in front of the building, right in through here. So that's what this landscape schedule is. It's for the landscaping in front of the building. So we can just clarify that with a note. And then the fourth item, Kyle's right, the O&M that was referenced in the approved drainage in part of your order of conditions references the sediment forebay and bioretention area, which we don't have on this site. So that should be eliminated from the O&M document.
So you won't have those.
Right, exactly. So so out of those four things, there's three minor changes, clarifications to make to the plan, and then just to update that operation and maintenance document to eliminate the sediment forebay, Madam Chair.
Kyle?
Yeah, I've just got a couple questions for Scott. So, Scott, could you talk a little bit more about the O&M plan? And so when I was reviewing this, the approved plan of record does not have that sediment forebay or bioretention area included.
Right.
But there, as part of the O&M plan, there was, and so just taking a step back for the commission, Beta did the stormwater review for the commission for this project, and as part of their review of doing that stormwater, they required this operations and maintenance plan. And one of the things that they required in one of their letters was this OM1 sheet to be included. And in that sheet, it does have the sediment forebay and bioretention area included. So I wasn't sure if that was something that was that beta that was supposed to be included in the original plan set, and it just didn't make it to the full plan set, and that was like an amendment that initially was approved and was intended to be constructed under the original order of conditions. Is that the case?
No, the OM one, is the document where we basically explain how we meet the total suspended solid removals. So typically we have a sediment forebay in the bioretention area to get us to the 80% removal. In this case, again, because we don't have a detention basin, we don't have those structures. It's, to be honest with you, it's a cut and paste thing. It's typically in our report. We just didn't take it out. So the OM1 should reference the infiltration areas and the storm scepter, which gives us the TSS removal that we're looking for, and not have anything to do with the sediment forebay. Again, the sediment forebay and the bioretention area are just where you have a detention basin, which we don't have in this case.
Okay, so you're saying that the new plan for the amended order here does meet the TSS removal thresholds.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And what do you have instead of a bioretention basin now?
Instead of the basin, we have, I will go back.
Yeah,
We
okay.
have this, this large infiltration area.
Yep.
Yep.
The one
And
that
to
you
get,
added.
yeah, and to get the TSS removal, the total suspended solids removal, we have a storm scepter right here in front of this inlet, and then over on this side in front of this inlet. So those storm scepters, we talk about them all the time. We spent a lot of time talking about them on Industrial Boulevard. They're basically big structures that essentially clean the water before it gets dumped into the infiltration system. So in lieu of the bioretention area, we have this.
And the storm scepters were included on the original plan of record, correct? So
Yes.
you're saying that the bioretention area was just a holdover, shouldn't really have been included originally, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
Thank you.
A bad cut and paste.
Sure. Oh man, I'm about done tonight, I think. All that said, I think Scott, what I would like to see is a revised plan set. I think if I'm recommending at this point maybe we continue this to next month. You can make those small changes that we've referenced that just need a little bit of clarification. Overall, as Scott's mentioned, they're kind of reducing the overall impervious area on the site. They're increasing the capacity of the infiltration structure. They're moving things outside of the buffer zone. They're moving things farther away from the protected resource areas. I think that this is something that we could approve as an amended order. The one thing that I was concerned about was that that sediment forebay and bioretention area, and how that was going to be, if we were not including that, how that was going to affect the stormwater runoff. The only other point of contention potentially here would be that was included on the previously approved plan of record is that that overflow that's in the bottom right-hand corner of the parking area.
Right here.
That's just going to be an emergency overflow. It's going to empty out into the buffer. It's not directly going into the waterway. I think that's something that the commission could approve, assuming that everything else is up to standards with the stormwater, and it seems like it is. Now, this is something that the commission could potentially refer out to a third party. I don't know that it's necessary, but I'm not a stormwater expert. But it seems to me that they're reducing the impervious area, so there's going to be less water coming into the stormwater infiltration units. So they've increased the capacity of the stormwater infiltration units, and so and it had already been reviewed and approved under the old conditions. So I think that we're only having an improved site compared to what we had approved originally, with the exception of this overflow, which is the only thing that's really a big modification. So if the commission is comfortable including that overflow, I think we can move forward with an amended order, assuming we have a good plan set that we can, a fully complete plan set that we can reference in that amended order of conditions.
So we would continue requesting that full plan.
Yeah, requesting those modifications to be submitted so we can actually reference that plan in the actual amended order.
Sounds good.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public at all? I know for amended orders of condition, we do invite public comment.
I don't see anyone from
Commissioners,
the
you
public.
can put your hand up if you feel like you have any questions or comments.
Yeah, I don't see anyone from the public with their hand raised, Madam Chair.
Then I entertain a motion to continue, please. 135 Elliott until the February, February meeting.
I actually had a question, so I didn't realize
Okay.
you asked it. I just wanted to make sure if Kyle, you had mentioned the beta report had mentioned something about the OM1 plan, but when they did the calculation, since it wasn't there, the calculations didn't include like an actual sediment forebay. I don't even know if that would be part of it. It would have just included like originally that like sorry, back to the notes. It would have included like the drainage area, which had now being moved and is now bigger, but it wouldn't have had like a sediment forebay, so there's nothing like. Sorry, that's not making sense. Like, so the calculations would have had this sediment forebay, but even though they said like the OM1 was missing that, fine.
No,
The
you're-
calculations would have had the drainage area with that size that was smaller, now is bigger, but you said they mentioned that the sediment forebay would have to be added, but the calculation wouldn't have added anything with that since that's not in the plan. So we are assuming, I guess, that the calculation increases or decreases because of the size of the increase in the it's getting late.
Really?
Yes. I guess I just wanted to make sure that like that missing sediment forebay wasn't like in the calculations
Yeah.
that they would assume that there was one because it's not in the plan. It's just that.
Yeah, I can follow up on that and just confirm that to be the case. But assuming that it was just kind of a typo, as Scott said, assuming that's the case, Scott, I think we can
Yep.
move forward. But I can confirm with Beta. I'll give them a ring later, this month before the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. And there's no one from the public, so entertain a motion to continue.
A motion to continue 135 Elliott Street to the February 19th meeting with amended order of conditions as stated by Kyle.
Second that motion?
The motion's been made and seconded to continue with a request for updated plans, I believe, as well, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
That was
Uh,
part of Kyle's conditions. Mhm.
To be, okay. Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Matt, I.
How about
And Boris, aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Whew.
We're getting there.
I feel like I've been on a marathon tonight, and I really thought that it wouldn't be bad. But wow. Yeah.
All right. This one here, Madam Chair and Commissioners, 45 Industrial Boulevard.
Yes.
Excuse me. We discussed this project at length last meeting with the commission members. I believe Elise from Beta was there. Really, the only issue we had left was whether or not we were all in agreement that we were doing as much as possible to this existing detention basin. And it was our contention that we're agreeing to maintain this detention basin going forward, where currently it has not been maintained. It's really overgrown. And that in fact, by maintaining it, we would be helping the effectiveness of that basin. We had also reduced the amount of impervious surface going into the basin. And we felt like that was good enough. There was still some questions from Beta and from Kyle as to whether or not we could possibly do more. Beta had suggested perhaps essentially clear cutting it, excavating the bottom of the basin, checking the infiltration, the soil media at the bottom of the basin to make sure it has good infiltration, and redoing it. And we're really hoping that we wouldn't have to get in there and disturb a functioning basin that's never had any issues. So we kind of just left it that way, that we would think about it, and and you folks would have more of an opportunity to talk about it since everything was kind of dumped on you at the last meeting. So as a result of that, we went back to our client and we decided instead of leaving, I guess instead of ignoring Kyle and Beta's point of view that maybe we could do some more, we agreed to install 3 additional storm scepters that, as we've discussed, will further clean the water that's going into the existing detention basin. So we have a catch basin that just falls off my page that dumps into the existing pond. A second one here that dumps in, and these are all existing structures. We can retrofit a storm scepter into those catch basins, and then we would add one here at this manhole that's catching a bunch of the water and heading into that detention pond. So by doing that, we felt like we were really doing the maximum extent practicable in helping things out with that existing detention pond. So I think beyond that, we pretty much had a clean letter from Beta, except for leaving that up to the commission's discretion. So hopefully that storm scepter will make you folks feel better about it.
Thank you. Kyle?
Sure. So as Scott said, they added those sediment forebays. With this revised plan set, he submitted to me. I sent that over to Beta. They did look at it. They had a few comments that Scott has addressed. Just kind of labeling type of things.
Right.
So at that point, they're kind of Beta's has approved this plan and is recommending it to the commission. Well, I guess let me say this: they have no further comment based upon their initial letter that we looked at last time. I think that last month the commission was debating, as Scott had said, if they had met that maximum extent practicable. I think adding these here in, I think they've done anything. We were on the line before. I think the commission was. So the fact that they've done that, this additional addition, that's wordplay. I think that has raised the standard, and I think that they have met that standard. I believe it's ultimately up to the commission, but I think by adding those there to that retention basin, they are doing some additional treatment. There were 2 other things that we discussed last month. I just want to remind the commission about these because at this point, Scott's looking for an order of conditions on this project. Scott, the second thing was this conservation replication area that's kind of in the middle of the map. To install that's going to go within the 25-foot buffer, or we spoke about this last month, and I don't want to go back into it, but the commission was basically allowing this to be constructed, and there's going to be a wall that's going to be set somewhere within the 25 foot. Is that right, Scott?
Right. Right. Actually, the wall is right up against the 25-foot buffer. So the discussion we had was that it was, and I've got it labeled as such on this plan, it was just a temporary disturbance, just because putting the wall in, they've got to get on the wetland side of the buffer zone. So it was just going to be a temporary disturbance during construction of that wall. And whatever land that they disturb, we then have a buffer zone enhancement plan. So it's just a small temporary disturbance.
And will that wall be permanent?
Yes, yes.
How tall is the wall?
It's just a couple right here. You can see it's top of wall is 78.2, bottom of wall 76.7. So it's right around 3.5 feet in most cases. Right here it's 4 feet. So it's a segmented wall, retaining wall. It's basically the concrete blocks that you see at Home Depot essentially. So yeah, and again, that's just so we can have the grades work properly in the parking lot and with the land sloping off towards the river. It just kind of protects the river. protects the
It will
resource.
go
area.
along the 25-foot buffer zone, those black lines with the little white dots in it. Is that the wall?
That is, the black line is the siltation protection.
Okay,
So the wall is just on the other side of it. You kind of lose sight of all the walls, but it's just on the other side of it.
okay.
Scott, do you have a planting schedule or anything for this? What's going to be planted in that area?
Boy, I'm pretty sure we did, Kyle, and I don't have it with me on this plan set. Yeah, we did submit an enhancement plan. We did.
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to make sure we had a copy of it.
Yep.
Reference in the order of conditions.
Okay.
And then finally, there was an issue over with the two retention areas, the new ones. It was like a labeling issue, I think, wasn't it? Was that corrected on this plan set?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. A labeling issue with the in the drainage schedule.
Okay.
So
All right.
those are the basically what we tried to do is make any changes we made, we try to make them in red just to make it stand out a little bit easier. So that's these changes right here. They were just kind of mislabeled a little bit.
Okay, great. Thank you. So all that said, Beta has basically given a clean recommendation for this project. Assuming the commission is willing to accept the proposed modifications to the stormwater on the old basin on the other side of the project, the site. So we could issue an order of conditions using Beta's suggested conditions that they've included in their report. I don't think there's any language in Beta's report about like a monitoring for it's a buffer zone enhancement, Scott.
Yeah, it's a buffer zone. It's not a replication plan. It's just a buffer zone enhancement. Yeah.
So the commission may choose to require some monitoring of that. It's pretty standard that we include stuff like that in
Sure.
projects that have that. So that could be an additional set
Condition.
of conditions that the commission chooses to include in an order of conditions.
That would be fine.
Would it be too much, Kyle, for you to summarize what those special conditions would be? Do you have those available?
I'll read them out real quick. You're really taxing my voice today, Joyce.
I'm sorry.
All right, so the recommended special conditions in Beta's final report were number one, stockpile and staging areas within buffer zone must be surrounded by supplemental erosion control. Number two, prior to construction, a copy of the draft SWPPP Stormwater Pollution Protection Plan must be provided to the Conservation Commission. The finalized SWPPP should be provided to the Conservation Commission upon completion. And number three, this is the final condition that Beta has recommended. Given that the floor elevations for of forebay 1 and basin 2 are at or below the elevation of the flagged wetland, the applicant shall notify the commission a minimum of 40 hours prior to the excavation of the forebay and basin to final grade, so the agent or a representative can observe soil conditions prior to stabilization. If during construction, groundwater is determined to be higher than what was observed in the test pits, drainage revisions will be required.
So that would be at that time of excavation.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Happy to hear about the storm scepter edition.
I entertain motion then to close the hearing on 45 Industrial Boulevard.
I make a motion to close the hearing on 45 Industrial Boulevard.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
Albert, aye.
And Boris, aye. Oops, Kyle, there was no one from the public, right?
No, there's no one else in attendance at this meeting, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
They're all in bed.
I know, where I want to go to. Okay, so I entertain a motion then to issue an order of conditions for 55 Industrial Boulevard with the special conditions listed by Beta as stated by Kyle.
And then
Make a motion to,
and then additional special conditions
Monitoring.
about like the standard monitoring time frame and language.
Yes.
okay, I'll make a motion for to issue an order of conditions for 45 Industrial Boulevard with the monitoring condition and the beta conditions.
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to issue an order of conditions for 45 Industrial Boulevard as stated. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
Albert, I.
And Forrest, aye.
Thank you for that, folks.
Good.
Last one, the quick one, Madam Chair.
Street. Tell me about Dunbar Street.
Dunbar Street, we're just looking for the monitoring well to be installed, and it just hasn't been installed yet, Madam Chair. So I hate to do it, but I'd like to ask for a continuance to your next meeting, and hopefully the weather permits that we can get that done in time for the next meeting.
Now, Scott, would you be honest with me? And what are the odds of getting that done before the February meeting? Now, the reason I say this is because we're splitting agendas now because we have 30 agenda items, and if we're not, confident that this is something that we can address in the short term,
I understand.
I'm in favor of the commission denying the request, and then once that's installed, you can reapply. Requesting a certificate of compliance is a very low bar as far as the application goes. There's no cost involved. There's no mailing.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's very easy to do. So
That would be fine. Yeah, we know what you're looking for. Once
Yeah,
I think there were 3 outstanding issues. Once we get the 3 of them cleaned up, we'll come back before you. That would be fine.
Sounds
okay.
fair.
Thank you. And Scott, if you want, I can give you a letter outlining the specific asks that we're looking
Sure.
for. Yep. Okay.
That would help. Thank you.
Okay. So at this
So we're
time,
making a motion to deny
yeah,
the
this is-
certificate of compliance for Dunbar Street
okay, until
until, I don't know, what's the estimated time?
Well, no, there are certain conditions that we outlined in last month's meeting that need to be met, and I will we can reference that meeting. Once this is done, I'll draft up a letter to Scott outlining what those conditions are, and those conditions will need to be met before we issue the certificate of compliance.
We'll reapply
Just-
entirely.
So it's just a flat denial, right?
Correct.
All right, I make a motion to deny the certificate of compliance for Dunbar Street.
I second it.
I was muted.
okay, motion's been made and seconded. Thank you, Sharifa. Roll call vote to deny the request for certificate of compliance for 122 Dunbar. Roll call vote, please.
Curtis, I.
Green eye.
Map I.
Albert, I.
And Boris, aye. Okay, that's done.
All right, we're free.
Daria, what a
Well,
night.
do we have to still talk about 1824 Main Street or?
No, I think we've
that
covered
set.
that before. Scott's gonna send us some additional information, and we'll review that, and then I can kind of present that to the commission at next month's
And
meeting.
is Scott going to be at the next meeting to give us markers to review and things like that?
I'll get that to you ahead of time.
Great. And that,
Alrighty.
hold on, very interesting. That was fascinating. That was very interesting, that you can do all of, you know what I mean? Anyway.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Was interesting.
It is.
Make a
So-
motion to adjourn the meeting.
I
Thank you,
second that
folks.
motion.
Okay, I think the motion's
Good
been
night,
made.
everybody. Have a good one. Good
Okay.
to see you,
Thanks,
Scott.
everyone. Bye.
Feel better, Kyle.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
See you tomorrow night, Kyle. Feel better by
Yeah, I
then.
got another one.
Good night.